Village of Essex Junction Board of Trustees to order for September 8th. And do we have any agenda additions or changes for tonight?
We do have one agenda addition and change. It's item 6D to go with the consent agenda. It is a memo from Brad Luck asking for the trustees to approve acceptance of a school age hub startup funding grant, which would help with the reimbursement for some of the daycare costs that the EJRP is providing.
Great.
And just a quick note, if I can, Evan is double booked right now with the select board meeting happening at the same time, so you have me tonight.
Great.
Well, that's fantastic.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks.
Trustees, any agenda additions or changes?
No.
Raj, do you want to add yours? I think you're muted, Raj.
Whenever that happens, the little control panel just disappears as soon as you say it.
Yep.
Inadvertently left out the letter introducing 5D from neighbors. I can send that to Greg or all of you right now.
If you want to send it to Greg and to all the trustees,
yeah,
that'd be appreciated.
Sorry about that.
And it's basically like a memo to introduce.
He is a trustee.
Okay.
It was the letter from some of the residents that went with the two pieces you see from 5D. When I looked at the packet, I didn't see it in there, and I just acquired it back, and now I'm sending it to you guys.
Great. Thank you, Raj. So there are 2 items to add on. So I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda.
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, George. Thank you, Amber. Any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay, so and that will bring us into the public to be heard portion of tonight's meeting. So the way that this works is I will take about a 30-second pause, as there is a delay from when we speak to when people who are watching it through YouTube or other video means maybe hearing it. And so during this pause and afterwards, if there is someone from the public who wishes to speak,
This is the Board of Trustees.
I would ask that for people who are not speaking, if they could put themselves on mute. Thank you. So as I was saying, for those, if you'd like to speak to the board about something that is not on the agenda, now is going to be the time to do so. If you could please put yourself on mute if you have not been recognized. There is somebody who has a lot of interference right now. Thank you. So if you'd like to speak to the Board of Trustees, please go ahead and introduce yourselves. Let us know that you'd like to speak, so that way I can understand who would like to speak. So now would be a time to let me know whether you would like to speak to the board about something that is not on the agenda tonight.
President Brown, this is Brian Sheldon.
Okay, thank you, Brian. If you don't mind just hanging on a second, well, I can see who else would like to speak.
No worries.
Okay, I'll consider this last call. Anybody else like to speak to the board about something not on the agenda? Seems like that's a no. Brian, take it away.
All right, President Brown, trustees, thank you for this opportunity to speak. I rise today to make a request. Campaigning during 2020 presents some unique challenges. The paper Essex Reporter is not being delivered. Going door to door is not a safe strategy during a pandemic, and we should discourage all candidates for November from doing things that are unsafe. During the August primary, the Essex Democrats did our best to follow Vermont state law and the village ordinance on placing signs in public rights of way. However, when we saw candidates, some of whom were our opponents from outside Essex, placing signs and not having them removed, we started to wonder if our interpretation of the ordinance was incorrect. So we joined them. And you know what? That's the rub. Either political signs may be placed in the village rights of way, or they may not. My favorite example is there was a Pat Winburn sign that was put up on Main Street by the TD Bank about a month before the primary. I personally took that sign down more than a week afterwards. At the same time, anything placed less than a block away at Five Corners or across from Railroad and Main were nearly immediately removed. There's an easy way to simplify the village's enforcement challenge. I ask that the village waive the ordinance for political signs for the 2 weeks leading up to the general election. This has several benefits, not just for candidates, but for the village. It removes the impression of favoritism that might inadvertently be expressed by having some of the lawn signs taken, but not others. It further reduces the workload of public works. As chair of the Essex Democrats, I can assure you that signs of our candidates will be retrieved the day after the election, as they were on August 12th. And lastly, it's good for democracy. Now that there are fewer and fewer ways to get your name out in Essex during a pandemic, this one way would be helpful for everyone. Please consider waiving the ordinance for political lawn signs from October 20th to December 3rd just for this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. As this would be the first time that we've heard this request, just so you know from sort of like a process stance, what I'd like to do, if the board is willing, is to take that as feedback at this point in time, and then to have that topic brought up at a subsequent meeting when we've had a chance to better review the ordinance ourselves, so that way I'll speak for myself, that way I have a better idea as to what I'm talking about. And from the sounds of it, it sounds like we have a little bit of time to work with. Your request is for October 20th. The ballots are supposed to be mailed out towards the end of this month, if I remember correctly. So I think we have a little bit of time to look into this and possibly at our next meeting to take a position on it.
Yeah, I'm not greedy. I'd love to see them out for the whole absentee ballot and early voting period, but 2 weeks seems consistent with the state statute.
Thank you, Brian. And Raj, I see your hand is up.
None intended.
Okay. So that was the only person from the public who wished to speak to the board about something that was not on the agenda. And as such, we will go ahead and move into business item 5A, which is a discussion and potential action on policy on raising of flags and painting of murals on Village of Essex Junction property. And Greg, do you want to take this away?
I will speak to that. Just pulling up the memo so you can see it. And basically what this is, it's a first draft of a policy. The select board and the trustees, as you should remember, received a request from a resident and Essex High School student a few weeks ago to put a mural at Five Corners for Black Lives Matter. Neither the town nor the village really have any policy in place in terms of how to handle such requests. So the Community Development Department put together a proposed policy for the trustees and the select board to look at, give consideration to. And it kind of creates some standards for guidelines for hearing requests if somebody wants to raise a flag on municipal property, put a mural on municipal property, and it can walk through there. Some different criteria, the application process to go through. Somebody looking to put up a mural or a flag would have to approach the trustees with the location they want to put it in, the duration for how long they want the flag or the mural to be up for, plans for maintenance, a removal plan when the timeline is expired, a design, and any other additional information requested by the board. The murals are a little bit trickier too, especially in the right-of-way. There's the MUTCD standards, and I forget what they stand for, but it's traffic safety essentially. And so concerns from Public Works that any mural not interfere with existing traffic signals, line striping, crosswalks, stuff like that could create other hazards for pedestrians or vehicles. But really, that's kind of the overview. Hopefully you've had a chance to review the draft policy. Call to your attention, it should probably say municipal property as opposed to public property, seeing as the village and the town don't have jurisdiction over state or federal properties or school properties. But apart from that change, kind of just looking for feedback at this point, and staff can take those comments and bring it back. We're presenting the same policy to the select board tonight, trying to hopefully get the same policy for the town and the village. Makes it a bit easier to administer from a staff standpoint. and based on the feedback, can bring this back for future review, hopefully later on this month if the trustees so desire.
Thank you, Greg. And again, just for context and to make sure that anybody watching, or those of us on the board, understand, the intention of this is to not approve of either, well, potentially not to approve of this this policy tonight, but also to not approve or disapprove of any particular request that has come to us. But really to make sure that when a request does come, that we have some kind of framework in evaluating whether or not to allow for the request, as well as for those making a request to understand what the process is in terms of if they want a flag, if they want something painted on a road, what that process is. So again, this is not to approve or disapprove of any particular flag or any particular mural, simply the policy for making that determination. So with that, I do have a couple of comments, and for tonight, I won't do any wordsmithing. Greg, if you, I would ask that we not do wordsmithing at this stage. This is more of a higher level. If we have wordsmith questions, concerns, I think, Greg, would you be okay if we just email those to you?
That would be perfect. Thank you.
Great. So then, with that, one of the things that I think would be important is when we talk about the design, whether that be the design of the mural, design of the flag. I think we want to be explicit that people need to give us the exact design, with a differentiation being that if it varies, if what ends up being put up is different than what we had approved of, we want to make sure we have some kind of capability to take that back down. Similarly, I didn't see anything that would allow us in the village to be able to remove either the flag and or the mural at any point. And I think that it might be important for us to, if there is one that's approved, to be able to remove it at any point without notice. And that if we do remove it, or if anything happens to the mural, that we're not the ones responsible for it. Simply it is the responsibility of those who are who have asked to have this done. Basically making sure we're not liable for anything related to it. I also think that there was mentioning of, I believe this was with murals on Educational Drive as a preferred location. I have an assumption, or well, I would say that if we are going to go down that path, and if we would approve of a mural on Educational Drive, we should have some kind of a conversation with the school board on this. While I'm pretty sure Educational Drive is a municipal's road, philosophically and logistically, it's right in front of the school. And so I want to make sure that's some kind of a joint process or a joint conversation. And in general, I think we may want to look at our village's mission statement. I think we could shorten that up a little bit, possibly not be so specific in terms of listing out the specific services, but just simply having it be more of that aspirational statement. And I'm not sure what the process would be to do that, as I don't think we've talked about the 8 years I've been on the board. I'll just put that forward. I would also ask that if you're not speaking, or if you have not been recognized to speak at the meeting, if you could please make sure that your microphone is muted, so that way we're not having any side conversations. That would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. And those, I think, are all of the comments that I had on this. For all the ones that I had. Other trustees, any comments?
Okay.
Go ahead, George.
Well, I'll start, but I'm happy if someone else wants to jump in. I'm gonna say I appreciate the intent behind the policy. I appreciate the spirit behind the policy, but I've got a number of problems with it. We're not a design review board. We're not a political speech board. We're not an art council. This would put us in the position of judging political speech. I think, you know, you referred to the the Montpelier ordinance, and they continue to stress art. They say it's art, it's public art, but I don't think what we're talking about here is public art. I think what we're talking here is political speech, and that's troubling. And I absolutely endorse. I want to get beyond the issue of Black Lives Matter. I completely endorse and embrace what it's trying to achieve, but we have to rise above that. I'm concerned about First Amendment issues. I'm concerned about painting something on a street in a neighborhood where the people might not want in that part of the village may not want to see that painted on there. So it gets into zoning issues and community development issues. So I've got a bunch of problems with this. I'd also say that, and I know that this has been done in Burlington and in big cities where they've allowed public, political commentary to be painted on streets. But, we're a small little village board, and we've managed down through the years to keep politics and national politics divisive, liberal, conservative, Republican, Democrat politics up at arm's length. And I think something like this could bring it right smack into the board and be very divisive. So I've got those concerns. I also have the concern that I as much as I value the input, and I mean it sincerely, of Owisu and Dennis Lutz, I would want to see this. I would want to see input from Rick Hamlin and Ricky Jones and Claudine Safar and Robin Pierce regarding this policy before it comes back to us, because like it or not, we're not merged. We're the village, and we have our own advisors, and I would want our senior staff to weigh in on this. So I'll stop talking, but those are my concerns if you're looking for input. Thanks.
Thank you, George. So with those being your concerns, if I may ask, would you prefer that instead of having a policy that talks about about how to approve or disapprove of a request like this, that it simply be we don't do this here?
Yes, I'd be leaning towards that. I certainly wouldn't. I would certainly say, we've looked at painting, trying to put a mural, and we've looked at trying to put murals on buildings around the village as art. This seems to be talking about, a political statement, though, and that's the problem. I think, and normally in the past, like if we use an example, not too long ago with the Essex High School graduation, some parents a group of parents came to us, and they wanted to put pictures of the kids on the lawn at Lincoln Hall. We didn't have a policy. They just came and made a request. So I would prefer right now that we not have a policy, because a policy then says to me, you've got to conform to your policy all the time. And that's great when you're looking at a political issue or a philosophical issue that you agree with. But then when someone comes to you with a policy, or with an issue or a question or a statement that you don't like, well, you got your policy. So you gotta abide by your policy. So it's a little concerning to me that where we want to create a policy. I'm not sure. I kind of like where we are right now, where if someone wants a waiver, a zoning waiver, or wants to do something, they come and talk to us, and we deal with the immediacy of the problem, and we don't have some kind of an overarching policy that binds us to do a specific thing. I don't know if that answers your question, Andrew, but that's my best answer.
It sort of does. One of the things that personally I appreciate about having a policy is it gives us some kind of a framework and prevents us from making what I would say as willy-nilly decisions or one-off decisions, where we have a request that has come to us about painting Black Lives Matter. And so if we use that as an instance, without this, then we don't really have a way of, other than our gut reactions, to say yes, no, to say, what do we ask for? And then if somebody comes and wants to put all lives matter on the street, how do we make sure that both sides are treated equally? Having a policy helps to make sure that both sides at least have an equal opportunity to come to us, and we can both times say, hey, thanks, we don't do that here. That could be a result. But without it, I can see there being political opportunities to say to one group, hey, sure, we like it, come on over. The other group saying, we really need you to do some more research. We need you to give us a philosophy behind this. So that's just where I see there being a little bit more of a creation of equity and fairness within having a policy.
I get you. I understand. I understand having a policy. It is good right now, but I guess I would lean towards. I mean, look. Brian Sheldon just raised the question of, let's a couple of weeks before the election, let's suspend our ordinance for lawn signs for candidates' lawn signs on the village right of way. Well, why do we have that ordinance in the first place? We have the ordinance obviously for safety reasons, because we don't want signs blocking, line of sight at busy intersections. So that's an important safety concern. But the public property, the public right of way of the village is our front lawn. I can put a sign on my front lawn that might offend you, but that's my front lawn. It's my choice. But the village's front lawn is our public property, and I'm concerned about us. I mean, I don't have a problem. I wouldn't really have a problem with someone putting their name, name of candidate. But when we get into putting political statements or slogans or something like that, it seems very much like we're heading down the road of endorsing political speech, and that concerns me. In a community like Burlington, where you have people who are Democrats and Republican running for mayor and city council, that's fine if they want to introduce that they want to go into that dimension of politics. But I'm concerned about introducing this onto the trustees. So I guess I would lean towards saying we don't do paintings on public roads there, and buildings. If you want to paint something on the side of a public building that the village owns, I can't think of any that we would allow.
These guys are going to talk forever until they get
I would,
where I want to talk.
I'm sorry, but I would lean towards not. I would lean towards not doing it. But I want to stop talking. I want to hear some other folks talk, besides Joyce.
Thank you, George. On that note, Raj, I saw your hand up first, and then Amber, if you want to go next. And just another reminder to everybody at home, if you are watching this, please make sure you're on mute, so that way you don't say something you might not want to have said or have heard.
So I'll try to keep this as brief as possible, I guess. I think George brought up some good points. And I think we probably don't want to move forward on this tonight. I guess my only other comments were I really liked what I read in the Montpelier. First of all, I like the first pass at this. I think it's a good first pass at the policy. I appreciate staff putting this together. I don't know where I fall on this yet. I'm leaning towards having a policy, but I really want to think about what George was talking about. The guidelines in Montpelier's, I believe it's the flag policy. I'm scrolling up to make sure it's flag. Oh, it's actually there's street painting, but I think it applies both. They list 9 guidelines, and I'd really like, not right now, but if we're going to wait anyway, folks to kind of look at those guidelines carefully. And I think those guidelines are powerful, they're complete, and when combined with a mission statement that I think we can probably improve on ours. It's interesting. I hadn't seen our mission statement before. I guess I should have looked for that. I think it's fine. I would like to see it a little more complete and nuanced. I think in talking with some of the EWSD board members and how they've recently kind of modified their policy and where they came from with doing so, I don't have a problem with having a policy and approving projects if we can tie those projects and those requests to community values and standards. And I think that brings us right back to the mission statement. So I think maybe Andrew, you mentioned it earlier, we may want to look at that first. we need a basis for a policy, and we need a basis for if this is something we do, and it's still an if, we need a basis to be able to say that, look, this project fits our community standards and our mission statement, or it doesn't. And that gives some reasoning to approving some projects and not others. But all of that said, I would appreciate some time to kind of consider what George is talking about, and to be able to look into how other communities discuss this. Not so much how they ended up with what policy specifically, but kind of how they got there. And we are different than Burlington in terms of having a political board versus a non-political board. So I guess that's all I have to say about that currently.
Thank you, Raj. Amber, your hand was up next, and then Dan.
So I agree with George. I kind of feel like we don't really need a policy, and kind of like it isn't broke, so why are we trying to fix it? We had 6 months ago conversation with the folks about the flags on the poles with the vets, and we had a pretty lengthy conversation about that. And I think that was, it was a good idea. I mean, we didn't end up moving forward with it because we didn't have a policy. We didn't have any, who's going to take it down, who's going to put it up, all of these conversations. I feel like, again, we haven't had a need to do this. So why do we need to do this now? I also feel pretty strongly about, to George's point, like, we don't need murals. I mean, do we need flags? We need the American flag. We need the flags that we currently have, but do we need to put additional flags up in the village? So I'm kind of leaning towards the direction of not having a policy. I'm also a little concerned with, I think it's a great first draft, but I kept stumbling upon, as I was reading the how all of the clauses tied together, finding a way that I wasn't going to offend somebody by voting one way or the other. And so that kind of struck me as, I don't know how we get past this, especially given, I know the current discussion. So I'm struggling quite a bit with the language. I also think 90 days is too much. I know it says up to 90 days, but that gives us too much leniency. It's either 30 days period, or if we grant one person 60 days, but then we grant the other person 90 days, what's the distinction between why we're doing that? So if we're going to go down the road of using this policy, then I would want to see those timeframes shortened.
Thank you, Amber. Dan?
Yeah, I don't have much to add, just other than I agree with George and Amber in the comments that I don't see the need for a policy right now, and I think it's opening up Pandora's box with a lot of other entities or groups that want to have a statement made, and if they have a pallet the size of a roadway to put the statement on, they're going to try and make a big statement. And the other thing is, it could be a road hazard in several different ways, but distracting drivers. But the other is, in the wintertime, with the road surface being covered with snow, salt, whatever, who's going to maintain that? What goes on there? I know down in Montpelier or some areas I've heard people have been doing skid marks on some of these murals, and then are they going to be charged with a crime of vandalism or defacing something? I think it opens up a lot of issues. This country is very divided, and I don't want to see any more divisiveness within the context of our community, much less the community as a whole, the country. And I think this is very divisive.
Thank you, Dan. So my takeaway from this is that there are three leading to not even having a policy. Greg, I think you got your feedback.
I think so. I'll see how the select board, what they end up doing tonight. but it sounds like the trustees don't want to see it again, or don't need to see it again, or would you like to see changes based on some of the comments I heard tonight and what the select board does?
I would like to do that.
You would like to see it again?
Yeah, I think, I don't want to promote divisiveness either, but you have a solid mission statement. You have community values that are based on that statement and in our heart and soul documents. I think there's. I'm not crazy about the road painting, to be honest with you. But flags, putting out a statement that I think, that we can say this does represent our community aspirations. These are good values. That these are good statements to make. I think that's okay. I'm fine with being in the minority about that, but I think divisiveness doesn't necessarily mean there's not a right or a wrong. So I think we should see what the select board says and see what kind of revisions, see what the comments are from them. And look at it again if need be, without letting it just die right now.
I know I'd be in favor of having it come back here for one last time, but I also recognize I'm in the minority in this one, and so I would look to those of you who don't think a policy is necessary to really help make that decision. Go ahead, George.
Andrew, if you want to bring it back and have another round of discussion on this, given the concerns we've raised, I'll support that. That's fine with me. And I think Raj makes good points, and I don't think that we're looking to quash or discourage, well-intentioned and political speech. But I just look at it locally. If I at the end of my road here in the village, if someone just went and painted a giant, political sign out there or a slogan out there, how would I feel about that? I think we have to balance it that way. And in my mind, if the school district, if the high school wants to put something on their road, that's fine. That's their campus. If the town wants to put something at 81 Main or the police station, on their property, that's fine. But I'm concerned about opening the floodgates and on village property, and I don't know where it would end. And once we have a policy, what else is going to happen, and what places could this lead us to? But Andrew, on the other hand, I think it's an interesting discussion for us to have. So if you want to bring it back, I'll support that. I certainly would support that.
Go ahead, Raj. And then Dan.
I just want to say something to George. I get it, and I worry about the same things. That said, Andrew brought up the issue of the example of Black Lives Matter earlier. See, I don't see that as a political statement. I see that as non-political. I believe we've had slavery in this country legalized longer than it's been illegal. Saying Black Lives Matter, to me, is not a political statement. It's a fact. And I say that, but I also recognize we will get requests that are going to be very hard to handle and figure out. And I just need personally more time to think about how we do that because of all the issues that George raises. And so, yeah,
It's tough. It's a hard issue.
Go ahead, Dan.
Well, just one thing. I think the BLM statement, Black Lives Matter, is making a political statement. And that I'll leave it at that. The other issue is this state, before most of you were around, except, well, George wasn't here back, but it'll probably be all of you before you were here. We had billboards. When I was a little kid, we had billboards around the state. You could see billboards as you drove down the road in certain areas in the cities. We got rid of billboards. They banned them. I think, not saying that this is billboards, but along the same lines. Everyone has their opinion on how people like tattoos or whatever. You know what? I'm not a fan of tattoos, and I think it just
Good point.
that or bumper stickers on cars. I think the car with pristine is much better than bumper stickers all over it. But that's just my.
Good point.
Thank you, Dan. George, is your hand up or is that a holdover?
No, I'm sorry. That's a residual hand up. Sorry.
Great. So it sounds like, yeah, let's revisit this, see if the select board made any changes or see what they've made for changes, and we can revisit it at, I think, the 20, whatever it is when we meet again. And Greg, thank you. Thank Awiso as well for helping to get it here.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks for your feedback and comments.
And that will bring us into item 5B, which was a creation and hire of new assistant manager. Greg, I assume you want to introduce us?
Yes, I'm just going to pull it up on the screen to get the memo available for everyone to see.
And I appreciate your double duty of not only helping to bring things up on the computer, helping to introduce things to us and to the public. So appreciate your multitasking.
Thanks for your patience as I do both. So as far as this issue and the creation of an assistant manager, it goes back a bit to questions about what's going to happen with merger or not merger. The boards had asked Evan and management to come back with some needs of what we're going to need if merger does not go through, or even if it does in some cases with the status quo. And certainly an assistant manager is one of the positions that would be important to us. Right now, Sarah Macy is doing double duty. Speaking of double duty, she's the finance director for 2 municipalities and also the assistant manager on top of that, in addition to myself being the deputy manager and Evan as the manager. And along with this, our operations go on without consolidation. One way or another, it just becomes more and more challenging for staff to maintain these dual roles and multiple roles in many cases. The assistant manager is something that's being proposed to help take some of that work off of Sarah's plate, let her focus on her finance duties for the 2 municipalities, and help out in terms of oversight of the different departments, help for different special projects and day-to-day operations, and working with the boards. It's a position that could be funded partially from Ann Janda, who was the project manager and left back in the spring. We're not seeking to fill her position. Part of that funding would go towards this, the assistant manager. All told, it's probably a salary range of $85,000 to $110,000 plus benefits. Brings the total pay probably into the $120,000, $130,000 range. Looking for some feedback on the trustees and select boards doing the same thing right now in terms of your thoughts on this, timing of it, and how to budget for it. We can certainly pay for it or seek to pay for it through the town budget, in which case all taxpayers are paying for it equally. There's also a ratio that Sarah has pulled together that we've used in the past for shared expenses. That kind of breaks things down based on, I believe it's the grand list, in a way to kind of equalize the payment between the town and the village. There's another option if the village is interested in wanting to contribute this to this position for just for oversight reasons or anything to that effect. Hopefully you have our trust at this point, but just another option if you want to weigh in on it from that way from a budgeting standpoint. We do need to speak to this about the unions. The association and the town union. They've have some comments and thoughts on it, particularly in a time when we negotiated a 1-year contract with lower pay increases than both the associations have received in the past due to COVID and the pandemic and not knowing what's happening with the economy. So that's some more discussion. But tonight, just hoping to get your feedback on what you see and where to go. And we'd like to bring it back to you, again, based on feedback from the select board tonight to review again, hopefully later on this month, and get some more clear direction at that point. But I can try to answer any questions that you have and go from there.
Thank you, Greg. And I can certainly understand the concern from the union and the association in terms of adding what may be, what may seem to be additional administration, additional overhead, if you will, or management at a point in time when staff had to give some other stuff up. I don't want to get into too many of the details. I'm not sure if we're supposed to outside of executive session. So I can certainly hear and understand that for sure. Now, along those lines, in terms of whether or not town or village pays for, or whether or not the village contributes, I certainly know that there is the need for this, and I'll get to that again in a moment. Personally, I'm in favor of it coming out of 100% from the town taxes, as it doesn't require a contract, it doesn't require an MOU. Should the grand list values change, should personalities change through elected officials, it's not something that would be held to those. It would not be something that's, should there be any significant leadership change from the select board, or turnover, that then we find ourselves in an untenable situation where we're kind of fighting about, is it 42, is it 50, is it 60%, who pays what? But that's all taken care of when it's just paid for through the town. And that clearly, when I look at the job description, in my regular conversations with Evan, I have no doubt that there is a need for this position. And clearly that need is coming from a continued delay in merger. It's one of the reasons why I know we've been pushing for the merger to go on as scheduled. This is one of those costs of delaying it. So I have absolutely no doubts in my mind as to whether or not this position is needed in terms of a workload perspective. We've seen Sarah, we've met with Sarah, we've heard from her, and her asking to be able to get back to the job she was hired for, and appreciate that. One question I have: would this be considered an interim or a permanent position? Thinking of like OWISO's job description.
We would be approaching this right now as a permanent position. Even in the case of merger, it's going to be a couple, 3 years at least, in terms of the transitionary phase and transitional phase, and getting to that point. And even afterwards, it's quite possible that this will be a permanent need, or at least a long time need, based on the amount of work that we have and projects that we have.
Thank you, Greg. And trustees. Go ahead, George.
Well, if no one, I mean, when Andrew says, "Hey, trustees," if none of the rest of you are going to raise your hand, what's going to happen. I'm going to jump in because I always have something to say. So you guys got to come on, pick it up a little bit, all right? Jump in.
We were told you had to go first all the time.
Is that right? Did Andrew say that to you? Oh my goodness.
Amber said that.
Did Amber say that? Okay.
Hey, don't get involved in this.
All right. Well, okay. You let yourselves in for it. First of all, I support this. I support it for several reasons. For all the reasons Andrew said, because when it comes out of the town budget, it means we all pay for it, not just the village. So I like that. We always like that component of things. And I also want to raise the issue that, we need this in case merger doesn't happen, but you also, because merger hasn't happened, but I think you also need this in case merger doesn't happen, Greg, because that's at this point, toss a coin in the air and merger may not happen. And yet I think we still probably want to try to make the shared administrative setup work. And so I think as you guys learn more about it, and if this is going to work and help it work and make it better, I'd be supportive of that too. The only thing I'm going to say is, and I don't want to create a side project because you've got plenty to do, but you might want to just not so much consult me, but you might, I noticed that there's for this position, there'd be a lot of interaction with the elected officials, a lot of oversight of elected boards and policies. You might want to just, at some point, talk to the elected boards, just a little quick survey, to get a sense of what's working and what's not working from our perspective in terms of the shared administration. to maybe help you better tune your selection for who you who you hire. But I'm generally supportive of this.
Any other trust? Oh, go ahead, Greg.
Sure. Thank you, George. Appreciate the support and the comments. And certainly, if we're happy if the trustees look at the job description and see anything that should be on there based on what is or isn't working, either bring it up tonight or at a future meeting, or shoot Evan or I an email. We're happy to consider it, and certainly we can also try to reach out more directly too and see if there's anything specifically that you have in mind.
Yep.
Any other trustees have comments, or did George take it away for everybody?
Generally supportive. Thanks, George.
All right, Greg, I think we're all set on that one.
Great. Thank you all.
Thank you. And that brings us to the next one, which will moment. Designating voting delegates for VLCT for 3 different meetings.
This is something that the Vermont League of Cities and Towns hosts every year. They have their annual town fair, and at that meeting they have the annual meeting for VLCT. All the municipalities who are members are invited to select a delegate to be a voting member. I believe they're just voting on the VLCT policies. This year there's also delegates for passive and verb, which are insurance providers to the municipalities. And I can't remember what the trustees have done in the past, if you've sent someone or not, but you're certainly welcome to do so this year. And in addition to nominating a member, just wanted to make you all aware that anyone is welcome to attend. And if you are interested in going to any of the town fair stuff this year, just let me know and we can get you signed up.
Thank you, Greg. And that was going to be one of my questions, is who has gone in the past? I know in looking at my schedule, I don't think I can commit to any of those times. So I don't know if, George, was this something you've done in the past, or was this something?
No,
Okay.
I haven't.
Really? Do you want to?
And nor can I commit to those times. But I would absolutely support some of the other trustees being appointed if they want to step forward. It sounds like a great thing. So I'm not being sarcastic, seriously, I think it's a good thing, but I just can't do it. I'm just way too swamped. I can't do it, guys.
Well, and in terms of, I might be speaking out of turn here, but one of our current town select board chair is on the VLCT board itself. Her appointment there may have in part had some type of influence on her participation in these meetings. So for future opportunities as well, if anybody's interested. Or if you just pull the short straw.
I nominate Raj.
Oh, there is a nomination.
I was
table.
waiting.
What did I do
waiting
to
for
you?
that. That's perfect.
Hey,
That was
you got me into the last one.
Oh, wait. Hey, Amber, his voice, he's muted, so we can do whatever we want.
Second.
He can't object. It looks to me like he's agreeing. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's super enthusiastic.
I think he's regretting that this is virtual, as he'd like to. No, you don't. There doesn't actually have to be anybody appointed. Correct me if I'm wrong, Greg. We don't actually have to appoint anybody to this. There just wouldn't be an Essex Junction vote.
That's correct.
Right. So, in all honesty, does anybody actually have the time?
Can't we just have a proxy from the town?
Well, I mean, certainly if the select board member that's appointed to go or elected to go is in the village, then that could work for us as well. Although since they're going at the exact same time as we are, we don't have an answer to that one. I'm personally fine just if we let this go and Essex Junction doesn't have a vote. Does that sound good?
Fine with that. Good.
All right. I think your answer is there is nobody going.
All right, got it. Thank you.
I had to restart.
Sorry.
It
Sorry.
crashed on me to be able to speak. I don't think I can make the schedule work. It looks. Thank you, Amber. That was a nice.
We're always looking out for you here, Raj.
I know.
Time you upgrade your computer web link here, it seems like kind of locked the slow speed internet connection or something.
Yeah. All the homeschooling.
Yeah. All right, so that will move us out of that one. And on to request to create an ordinance restricting parking on Warner Ave. And as that one's coming up, Raj had sent out a little something to introduce us with, which Greg has
I can.
brought it up. Go ahead, Raj.
Well, first of all, I should probably recuse myself from this because I live on the street, and one of the residents that is frustrated by what we're talking about. So, as a meeting participant, I'd be happy to kind of speak to this, but I will not and should not act as a trustee on this.
Just for clarification, Raj, you certainly can if you'd like to. Typically, recusing yourself can be if there are any concerns of a financial standpoint, if you have anything really financially to gain from an item. Along those lines, with the project that's the stormwater project that happened along the intersection of Brickyard Road and Mansfield, I also recused myself just as it was my backyard. So if that's how you want to handle it, you're more than welcome to.
Well, why don't we compromise and I'll introduce this, but
Yep.
I would appreciate the trustees taking it from there. I don't want any appearance of anything.
Sure.
At this point, especially. We do have, I think, at least one or two residents, I believe, on the call, and I would really like to hear from them more than myself. But Pearl Street Park recently added some wonderful pickleball courts, and a Eagle Scout made a great and very popular disc golf course. So you all know my public health background. This is a massive success story for our recreation department, for EPR, and they should be really proud and very excited that they have just exploded participation in this park. So everything that's going to come from here, from this point on, is going to sound, it's a little bit of complaining, but really what's happened in the park is amazing. So with that success has come frustration around, you guessed it, parking. Warner Ave is one entrance to Pearl Street Park. The other entrance is off Pearl Street near the jug handle with West Street Extension. It's a smaller parking lot. I can't remember exactly how many spaces. It's under 16 probably. It's not signed. The park doesn't have really a sign at the jug handle announcing it, or on Warner for that matter. The Warner Avenue parking area has traditionally had an handicap accessible spot and 3, maybe room for maybe 4 vehicles. This is a dirt parking area. Over the past year, especially, and some of last year, I guess, popularity of these mostly disc golf, but also pickleball, has meant that we have increased that smaller dirt parking area by 3 or 4-fold. It's now 40 or 45 yards long. The street has got, it's all day use. There are some busy times, but it's, sun up to sundown. A lot of us are starting to have safety concerns. As you can imagine, we have about 12 to 14 kids under 14, many of them under 10 on our street. There are no sidewalks. Warner Avenue is one of 2 entrances to the neighborhood and has always had a speeding problem. So right now we've got a very busy parking area, maybe upwards of 25 cars some days, sticking out into the road, double parked on the green belt, coming in, not being able to find parking, turning around in people's driveways at busy times of the afternoon, kids in the road trying to play. Again, there's no sidewalks. And so there's some frustration there, and the folks using the park understand, and when approached are very amenable to trying to find other solutions. But there is a parking crunch. On a busy day or busy night, the parking lot off Pearl Street's not enough.
Yeah.
So all of that said, one of the solutions we're asking for is some parking attention from the village. There are others, and I think that EPR is on some of them. Some of the things mentioned in that list that was just circulated. But I'd also like to hear from, I think Renee Dahl is on and Joyce Standard is on. So I'd much rather hear from them. But that's kind of an introduction to what's going on, and it's a tough one for sure. Totally admit that. But I'll mute.
Thank you, Raj. In line with introducing this topic, and since I have been doing such a terrible job of asking if there's anybody from the public who wishes to speak to any agenda items, why don't we kick it off on with the public at this point of this agenda item. So if there is anybody from the public who wishes to help introduce this topic, or if there's anything that Raj had missed, I want to make sure that we hear. Now is a great time to go ahead and just introduce yourself, raise your hand as Renee is demonstrating to let us know you'd like to speak, and I will call on you and it'll be your turn. So Renee, why don't you kick us off?
Great, thank you. So I want to echo what Raj said, is that this is a wonderful gift to the community, the pickleball courts and the disc golf. 4 years ago, I was calling Essex Parks about hypodermic needles in the street, and that is not what's happening now. The parking is definitely a concern. Our street is very much like a stickball in the street kind of street, and I'm very, very worried about the children and folks running up and down the street with quite a bit of speed. And when I come home from work, there's up to 13 different cars parked in that one tiny small area. I do worry about it. And maybe just some signage, better signage indicating folks to head towards the Pearl Street parking area would be spectacular. But I do worry about the safety of the kids and pets. This is a very busy street for walking as well on our street.
Thank you, Renee. Is there anybody else from the public who wishes to speak on this item? And if not right now, if it comes up later on, let us know. So seeing as there's nobody else's hand up, I know I have a couple of questions on this. One being, and Raj, I believe in the original memo with this, there was included a map in terms of property lines. One of my questions is where is our responsibility and or where is our capability to do something about this? I admit that the overwhelming majority of my childhood was the other side of this park. It always felt like growing up in a dead-end street, having Pearl Street Park as my backyard was always a nice thing. And always felt like one of the town parks. And I see the line up here. This was news to me, where if I see this dotted line correctly down the middle of the park, that the village may have responsibility / ownership of the playground, the disc golf course, or a few of the holes of the disc golf course. We may have the property of the actual main parking lot off of Pearl Street. This all seems new to me, and I'd love some clarification as to whether or not that is fact. That yes, that is what we have the purview over. And I don't need that right now. Additionally, I'd love to have some thoughts from our Public Works Department. I'd love to have some input from our engineering staff, from Robin Pierce as well, if there are ways that we could help with the situation to make sure that the parking that that Raj, you're talking about this, and Renee, what you were talking about, I know this weekend we were there, both Saturday and Sunday, and there were a couple of times where we had to turn around and go into the main parking lot on Pearl Street, or just off the jug handle on Pearl Street, because there weren't any of those spots available. But that was a choice that we made, and clearly was not made by other people using the parallel parking side, if you will, going closer to what looks like 22 Warner Ave.
Hey, Andrew, can I jump in a second?
Have at it, Ro.
When Dennis Lutz, Rick Hamlin, myself, Rick Jones, looked at the stretch from Susie Wilson down to West Street Extension, we looked at making it, one lane either way and a middle lane for turning. That would help everybody from Susie Wilson to West Street Extension get to their property without going around the jug handle. Also, we also looked at the fact that just east of where West Street Extension hits Pearl Street, there's a bus stop. And we're thinking of modeling what they did in South Burlington, where you can turn left opposite a bus stop because it makes the road wider at that point. If we do that, we don't need the jug handle anymore, and that whole area can become parking. I mean, it's a few years out, but the trustees approved the study, so it's slowly but surely making its way into the V-Trans queue. But we looked at that for three things: to alleviate the issues caused on the north side of Pearl Street because of the median that divides everything, so they really can't get anywhere. They have to go up to that uncomfortable turn at Susie Wilson and Pearl Street. We have to get into the head of the traffic to come back down Pearl Street again. So that would eliminate that. And it just, with the left turn at West Street Extension where it hits Pearl Street, it frees up that whole area to the right to be something other than a jug handle. Gotcha.
Since you brought up that project, do you have an approximation as to where that may be on the CCRPC's list?
Well, it's on the CCRPC's list, on the on the V-Trans list.
Oh, yeah.
It's down the queue quite a bit, but sometimes it's amazing how quickly things jump up the queue.
Okay.
But it has been considered. That's the only thing I was trying to say.
Can I ask Robin a question?
Go ahead.
Robin, what's your feeling on the ability to convert some of the green space inside the jug handle to parking?
Well, it's very possible once everything changes from Susie Wilson to West Street Extension and there's a dedicated left turn. And the need for the jug handle goes away because we've given people other options that occur prior to the jug handle.
I ask because it just appears that you could probably, if you converted the interior of the jug handle grass area to parking, you could.
You wouldn't get as many cars as you think. It's using the whole roadway as well as the hole in the middle of the donut makes a big difference.
Right.
So I saw Amber's hand and then George.
So I had, I guess, two comments. One similar to yours, Andrew, is where the delineation is and how much we can control. Obviously it has to be the public right of way for us to be able to regulate. But the second piece is, obviously I'm newer on the board, so I'm kind of curious as to how these types of requests have been handled in the past, as I know there is a list in the code that says, you can not park on the following streets in such and such place. So I don't know if anybody on the board has had that experience and can talk to that or not.
George, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think in the last 8 years this has come up, and not both this specific example, but then others related to it.
I can't think of. I don't know. I don't know. I can't think of anything.
Or Dan, if you remember either.
Dan's muted.
I don't remember anything specific. I think we did have something maybe at one point about the entrance off of Pearl Street, but I can't remember exactly what it was for. Somebody made a complaint once, maybe. Oh, I think the only thing I remember is traffic issues there. It's nothing particular to parking.
Just the only thing I would add, Andrew, if it's okay, is that there's traditionally been some parking there in the past. Again, it was traditionally like an accessible spot, maybe 2 or 3 more. This has grown exponentially just due to people driving onto what was Greenbelt, cutting back trees on their own, mowing the greenbelt that's owned by the town or village on their own, and you know, I think the feeling on many of the residents is that, yes, you know, we need to find some place for folks to park, but I think that the rest of that statement or thought continues to, but it shouldn't be years out while we wait for some relief on the street. It has kind of changed the character of the street and changed the safety aspect. You know, we don't have sidewalks, and one of the things that this street had some consideration from the bike walk committee was, and this never came to the board, but it was something that was discussed for village streets like this, is to paint white stripes that would mimic a sidewalk width down some of these neighborhood streets that aren't really cut-throughs, that would sort of delineate to drivers, you know the pedestrian with the dog isn't going to jump off the road because that's where they have to walk. And certainly in the winter time, for instance, there wouldn't be any place else to go but in the road. And if you have cars parked on both sides of the street, even one side of the street on our road, there's not room for two cars to pass, and there's barely room for a pedestrian and a vehicle to pass when there's a car parked on the street. And you compound that with everything else that's been going on, and I think that's where some of this comes from. Evan pointed out, rightly so, back to me, that there would be unintended consequences that have to be considered, and that's why I don't think this needs to be rushed. It's why it's a two-pronged request. I don't know that all of the residents of Warner are going to want to have a residential parking only. I know that we have some in the village. I'm not 100% sure how they're handled. It's just partly to bring this to you, to get it on your radar, and decide amongst yourselves if you think this is something, you know, if you're out and about on a, you know, after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, or first thing in the morning, buzz through the neighborhood. It's really grown. And again, you know, it's a great problem to have for parks. It's a very popular place, but some of the ideas have been really interesting. If you read through that late edition, you know, I think the disc golf in the community will work probably with EPR to kind of try to mitigate it. But.
Thank you, Raj. And Amber, was there still more to what you had?
No, that was it.
Okay. Raj, you're absolutely right, where this certainly, the amount of activity at the park has increased exponentially. We see it when we go for disc golf. We recently just got some pickleball sets. I would challenge any of the other trustees. If you guys want to try and learn that, I'm game. I'll wear my mask. We'll see how this goes.
Okay.
So you can also see, though, what the park looks like. George, go ahead.
I just have a quick question, because I'm not really that familiar with the area, but you know, I just looked at it. You know, I took a Google satellite walk down Warner Avenue, and it seems to me right across from the entrance, there's an entrance right from Brooks Avenue into the park. Is that correct? That goes through that big patch of woods. Why can't we, just as a temporary measure? It seems like you know, you got a very significant patch of woods there. If Greg could put that back up there, you know, you would only have to cut down a very small number of trees and kind of flatten some surface right along the edge of Warner to make a kind of a temporary parking area that could easily accommodate, you know, 15 or 20 cars if people are so inclined to park there. I don't know, maybe obviously we need to, you know, have Ricky Jones and Robin and, you know, everyone, the town village engineer check in on it. But I'm just wondering, has that ever been thought of? Is there some reason we can't just along the side of Warner Ave, just create a little parking area?
I guess, you know, some of us have talked about it. It's sort of like what you hear when you say, well, you moved in near the fairgrounds, don't complain about the noise. You know, the park was there, but everybody that's sort of here now experienced a much different dynamic on our road and with the experience with the park entrance prior to 3 or 4 years ago. And to put in a full-on parking area, I think would change the character of the neighborhood such that you would have some resistance, I would say. And I don't think that that's a fair solution. Now, I'm sorry Joyce left the call. I had a great conversation with Joyce Stannard earlier today. You know, there's no easy answer to this. People want to come, but I will say that an unofficial survey that many of us agree with, you know, 70 to 80% of the people using these facilities, these amenities, are not, and I hate to do this, are not from Essex. And so I would be opposed to taking down or increasing a parking area in a space that traditionally didn't have one, to facilitate that. You know, there's some good ideas on directing people to the entrance of Pearl Street, like moving hole 1 of the disc golf, but it doesn't increase parking. And I don't know what to do about it, but I'd hate to see it come at the expense of the neighborhood.
Okay. And George, just to add on to what Raj is saying, when he was referencing that there used to be 1 or 2 handicap spots, it is in that area that you're referencing. And if you go now, there clearly has been at least 1 tree that has been cut down in the last couple of years to help make room for more trees or more parking. I recall those trees are still being there, I should say, maybe 4 or 5 or so years ago, and then they magically disappeared. Greg, I see your hand is up.
Yes, thanks. Answering a few questions. As far as an ordinance goes, creating a no parking zone is an ordinance change. I actually think that there was one recently on Lincoln Street, and there were 2 or 3 spots that were added. So it goes through a process. The trustees have to approve the ordinance. Then it sits for, I believe, 60 days when residents have a chance to appeal, in which case, if there's no appeal, then it takes effect. The police are looking at doing some traffic parking ordinance updates. I can check to see if this is in there. And otherwise, I think one of Andrew's suggestions at the beginning to work with Public Works, the police, the engineers, Essex Parks and Rec to try to figure out what some solutions are. And like George just suggested, they may look at some additional parking areas, whether it's the Jug Handle Garage or somewhere else, or just to see what's out there and be able to present some options to the trustees. I think the main thing, at least from staff perspective tonight, was to hear the request, or have the trustees hear the request and see if it's something you wanted staff to work on further. And if so, just recognizing where it falls in the list of the big to-do list. But if the trustees want us to keep going on it, we will start working and see what we can bring back to you in the near future.
I think that there certainly is a desire from the trustees to have this conversation continue. One question that I would have for Raj or Renee even, given that we are in early September, I think it's fair to assume that the parking issues are mostly because of disc golf and pickleball. In about 2.5 months, there's going to be little white flakes that are going to fall from the sky, and I think it's going to settle down a little, but you two live right there. You know this a lot better than I do. Would it be okay if these conversations didn't really kick up until about the winter time? And Renee, I think you're trying to talk, but you're muted.
I think it's really optimistic that you're looking at 2.5 months, Andrew, but I'm totally going to take it. I think that's totally reasonable. Again, I would be very sad to see 15 parking spots there. The trees there also create a nice sound barrier, but I'm totally okay waiting till winter to make the magic happen.
Okay. Thank you, Renee. And I think you were I think you were raising your hand before. Was there anything else that you wanted to add on this topic? Because I think we're going to transition out shortly.
No, I'm good. Thank you. Sorry.
No, don't be. It's all good. Thank you. George, your hand is up. Amber, your hand.
Andrew, I just want to clarify. I was only recommending, I think that maybe putting in a formal parking lot at the Jug Handle, that's a big project, and that would have to get into a capital, as we all know, a capital project, go that whole path. So it could be years. I hate to say it. It could be a long time. So all I was suggesting with with taking some trees out is just a temporary solution. But I'm not familiar with how intense the problem is. So I don't want to suggest that that's what I'm saying we should do, but that was just an idea as a temporary measure before doing a long range problem. I wouldn't
I'll
want
let
to
it
take that.
slide, George. I'll let it
without-
slide.
Yeah, thanks.
The other thing to throw out as well, I know some people who would be very displeased with me saying this. The end of Kimberly Drive also butts up to this park. And at the condos that are back there as well, there may be some other places where additional parking could be explored. Granted, that is outside the village, but I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, a couple of my neighbors brought that up, and the difference being parking on that street versus parking on our street is they enjoy sidewalks on both sides of their street. So parking on, I believe it's Kimberly, right, has a different impact than parking on Warner. If you parked on both sides of Warner, for instance, if you had two cars, you couldn't pass a pickup truck through the middle of it. So it's part of the, again, no easy answers. Just wanted to bring this to your attention as a first pass.
Thank you, Raj.
Thank you.
I think we are good on this one, unless anybody else had anything else to chime in with. All right, 5E, the design of the park at 1 Main Street. I'm not sure if Greg or Robin, if one of you were going to introduce this.
I will turn this one over to Robin.
Thanks, Fred. You wish. So, no, this has been a long time coming. We did have a design charrette during the open outside weekend on a Saturday. The design charrette is coming up with ideas for the space. It's not to design the space. So I tried to incorporate actually all the ideas that come up. Some of the ideas were that we could have a sitting wall along the line between Firebird Cafe and the property line that delineates it from the portion owned by the village. I think it was George and Awiso suggested probably the northern end point to have a quiet area where people come and sit and relax rather than just being a completely open space. Dan Clemens suggested, it'd be really nice if we had water where, dogs would come and drink. Not much, but just something that wouldn't be, dogs can't do that. And everybody wanted to try and make it an event space. So given the shape, which is almost like a wedge, it's narrow to the north and it's wider as it comes down to the intersection of Main and Maple. The sketch was developed, taken into consideration. We kept all the drawings. What we had done is, thanks to Rick Hamlin, we had a scaled map, and then he had scaled elements, benches, trees, lights, that people were able to move around, and then we had some glue and they stuck them on their drawing to get a sense of what the space would look like. And we're cognizant of the fact that, there's another fountain on the other side from a different generation for a different, for a different reason. But how could they, as John Alden might say, speak to each other while not being twins? So the elements that we looked at that were consistent with almost every successful urban park in America were paving, water, trees. Obviously, you throw in benches and other things. But thinking about Essex Junction, what are the two elements, at least in my experience, come to mind? The railway and bricks. So we tried to incorporate bricks, for Drury brick and elements about the rail line. We actually contacted New England Central Railroad and we came up with a sketch. We had 3 steps up to an entertainment area, and I know it's very difficult to imagine this stuff. And we thought it'd be nice if at the 4 corners we had rail lines, metal rail lines coming out of the ground. So I contacted NECR and I said, do you have any 14-foot tall rail lines? Because they have to be 4 foot in the ground. And they said, you did. And I said, we can, only the bottom side is flat. Could you put them together? Could you bolt them together for us if we decide to use them? They said yes. And then talking to John Alden, the back, he said it'd be nice to have a backdrop. The stage, for want of a better phrase. And we started off looking at something that'd be 3 foot high, and we said, well, why can't we have it, taller, and it would be a real backdrop? We thought, well, why can't that be brick? So in the back side of the brick would be the quiet space, and you can Google Spanish Steps, and even better, Pilley Park in New York. One of the main elements of Pilley Park in New York is it has a wall with water coming down. So we thought about what Diane said, and we thought, well, why can't we have a brick wall on the back side of the stage area that drops down into this small little trough, and if someone's going past with their dog, the dog can have a drink. And the other side of that would be 2 or 3 benches. This would be the quiet space. And then we went to what Rick Hamlin said, who grew up in the village. He said when he grew up in the village, all the main streets in the village had elm trees. We lost all the elm trees. But Princeton Nurseries developed the Princeton elm, which is immune to Dutch elm disease. So we thought we could put them around the outside. So it's, in a way, it's harking to the past, in a way that salutes the present, if you like. And we had talked about bluestone pavers, so everything would be 3 foot bluestone pavers. There'd be benches. The benches that run parallel with the property line between our site and Firebird Cafe wouldn't have any backs on them. So you could sit looking at the Firebird Cafe, or you could sit looking at the band, or you could sit looking at Main Street. That's, instead of people, Evan's wife, Eden, came up with the idea of, low walls, but low walls have to have a 4 foot foundation. This is a contaminated site. The idea is to remove the least amount of soil possible and still get something that works. So ironically, once this drawing is complete, it will go to the environmental engineer, and he'll do a corrective action plan, cap. What we're actually doing is capping what's underneath that used to happen. Where the stage is being put, we're raising it because then we won't have to dig up the area, not much of the area around where the old gas pumps used to be, which is the most polluted part of the site. So rather than digging into it, we're building above it, again capping it, but in a different way. And I met with John Alden last week. He's here but muted, which is, not a bad thing. And he sort of liked the concept, and the idea is, generally speaking, you have an engineer who does a drawing, hands it off to the CCRPC, who hands it off to the environmental engineer to do the cap. But the Department of Environment and Conservation agreed the village could do it internally, which saves us quite a bit of money, probably speeds up the process. John had a few, should I say, technical difficulties, trying to put it down in CAD format. But that's what the environment engineer is looking for. I did contact Rick Hammond today. He hasn't responded. See if he could do it. It was difficult to say. This is great if you haven't seen it. But even if all you say is keep moving forward and let us see it before it goes to the environmental engineer who's going to do the cap, that would be fantastic. That's it for me.
Robin, I have a couple of quick questions.
Sure.
I'm trying to get to where I wrote this down. One of the things in your memo was that the CCRPC needs this to be the cap to be completed by mid-September. Later on, you ask if we can approve of the final design or final drawing.
Yeah, I've talked to them since I wrote the memo, Andrew, and they would like us to hand it off by mid-September, but it doesn't have to be the final design. It's just they have a funding issue, and if they don't spend all their money by a certain date in September, then they get less next year. So it'd be nice to work with them because they've been wonderful to us, but there's a slight time crunch, but I don't think you should feel pressure to say yes to the design that you haven't seen. I think we can massage it a little bit and come back again.
Do you think you can come back by the 24th of this month? Because that is when our next scheduled meeting is.
Well, if you'd asked me that at 9 o'clock this morning, I would have said no, but I just canceled my flight to Ireland. So yes, I can.
That's the beauty of virtual meetings. You can do this from Ireland.
Not at my mother's house. She doesn't even have a cell phone. It's a loud line, you're toast.
don't want to do this at a pub? Never mind. I'm not putting you on the record.
That's only because you want to come with me, Andrew. I know I asked that question.
That's true. Okay, so the 24th could be possible, is what I think I hear you saying.
I think we should make that an absolute deadline. I think sometimes when you have a deadline, you get things done. If it's too loose, then I'll put it up to something else just showed up.
Yes.
So I will go ahead and I will say that yes, it is a deadline. I have a hard time giving approval for a philosophy. I'm totally fine giving approval for something I can kind of see, even if it's just a hand drawing of what will become a final plan.
Well, I could text you a sketch, but Evan didn't like it.
I think you've shown me one before. But before I get there, my last question for now is one of the elements that's mentioned is a water element. We have a really nice fountain currently over at Veterans Park. Is there really a need for another water element?
This is a very different water element. I would suggest you do Google Hilly Park in New York and see what it looks like. It's massive. Ours would be small. But if you look at the other one over there, which is lovely, if you could see it, if we cut down some shrubs, you can go in it, which is fine. It's a memorial. It's more than just a fountain. This is a place where people can come for dogs, and the dogs can drink, and the kids can look at it. When you sit down, actually, in an ideal world, when you sit in the benches and looking at it, it could be a Zen moment. It's a very simple thing. There's nothing spouting out of the ground. It's water coming out of the top of this brick wall and just dropping down. Hopefully in the winter we can keep it running so it freezes. And it's an artistic element. It's not just water.
Okay.
And I've said before, we're just not trying to create a sense of place here. We're trying to create a sense of pride. So, and it works as a backdrop to that. Just everything comes together that way. And it's not done yet. It's just schematic, and we're just talking.
Thank you, Rob. Yeah, I'd love to see something at the 24th. John, I see your hand is up. It is lovely to have you here.
My hand is up. Thank you.
Yeah.
It is great to be here. I've been attending other meetings. It's been pretty good. I'm glad to see you guys are on board with the whole meeting thing. And I did want to comment on the process here and support for what Robin's trying to do, because I support it. I think there's some details left to sort out, which is fine, but I'm trying to figure out how Robin is being supported by other people besides people like me that happen to have a skill that we're trying to make it happen over Labor Day weekend on personal time, and not how does this type of thing get done by the village? So is the village behind this? Are we, is the planning commission even aware of it? Is the planning commission even solvent at this point? I don't know what's happening. And I was hoping that, that I wouldn't have to come rescue Robin's idea here to save a grant that, I have to do kind of at the last minute, because, he doesn't have anybody available that can support him, and I just wondered how that works. How long has he been working on this? How come, we can't give him the resources that he needs to get something nice for the village? And, what's going on with that?
So I think, John, your question, there were a couple of questions, one of which is the PC solvent at this point? That I'm going to put aside.
Yeah, just put that aside. We haven't met in a long time, and just that was me spouting off about that. So put that on the side. Don't even answer.
Well, no, I can't answer that because I don't actually have an answer to it.
Don't even
answer. To a whole host of other questions that I'm going to save for another day.
Yeah. See, you shouldn't let me sit out here for so many months without having a chance to say something.
In terms of the support for Robin, I think that's what you're asking.
Yeah, I want to see this project happen, and I gave it a shot over the weekend, and I'm not getting where I need to go in order to meet the kind of requirements that these people are asking for, and I feel badly about that, and I'd like to know how we as a village can kind of pull this together.
Yeah, so I think this is the second or third time that this has come to us, and I think what the last, if I remember right, the last time it came to us, the ask was, tell us what needs to happen, give us the final design, or have the charrette. Go have the charrette, get public input. From the public inputs to help design the park, then come back to us with a design for us to then talk about. So if there has not been a resource that has been needed, that's news. It's the first I'm hearing that there isn't something that staff needs to move this forward. So that, again, I'm going to take that and I'm going to put that on the shelf for now, because it's going to lead me to other questions that I don't think are appropriate to be answered at this point in time. But I hope that that kind of gets to what you're asking.
Fine. So, I mean, I'm sure I can draw this by hand. My problem is more of a technical equipment / turned into a computer / software, kind of thing. But it brought a question to me that said, hey, wait, this is the requirements for the submission seem to have been, the bar set pretty high. And so in my field, the response requires, a fairly sophisticated drawing effort. And I'm not sure anybody was aware that it may have been, something that they're asking at the last minute. And, so we're all sort of trying to catch up now. And again, I just, if Robin and I are trying to pull it off together, sort of in the back room, I mean, it feels like there really needs to be maybe a little bit more resources given to it. So I don't know how that happens. I don't know who that is. I don't know what that means exactly. But it'd be a shame to kind of see something like this. That would be a nice thing for the village, to go away because we don't have a way to make it happen.
Yeah,
I would like to say a few things. I'd like to give kudos to John, because over and over and over again, he's somebody that can bounce things off, and he's always willing to give up with his time and always gives good suggestions. I did contact after I got, was it today, John, you sent me the email about your technical difficulties?
Yeah.
I did contact Rick Hamlin, ask him if he could, the schematic's basically done, but we have to put something on a piece of paper to get it in to the CCRPC. Asked if he could help. We did have a connector road meeting today, and at the end of the meeting he said, I've been in the construction site all day. I'll take a look at your email tonight and get back to you tomorrow. And it's the technical aspects. We have examples of what the drawing should look like. So we know what we have to do. We've kept it very simple. Most of what's there is going to stay there. So that helps. We're going to dig out 12 inches, mostly of blacktop and gravel. Most of the pollution is 10 to 12 foot down. So we've kept it very simple. We've incorporated as many aspects of the charrette design as we could, based on what the site demands that we do. And it's going to be a really nice space, and it's going to work by itself. It's going to work if in the future, the road system around it changes. It'll work for both, and it gives us a small, entertainment space that could be a large entertainment space. There's a lot of things about it work, and like with any design, you can do it 100 ways. Maybe they're all good, but one works better than all the others based on the constraints of the site.
Thank you, Robin. So one thing I do just want to get back to real quick. So in terms of what do you need to moving forward, I don't think there's been a time in my history on the board where we've ever turned down a grant. And if staff needs something to get the grant, then do what you got to do within the budget you have. So if you need something, I hope you are able to get what you need to get this done. If you need something beyond that, let us know. I don't know what that is. So
I think at this point in time, we're relying on the village engineer to come up with the CAD expertise without technical difficulties put together what John and I talked about. I think John likes it. I sort of like it myself. And hopefully we can move it forward.
Yeah.
Speak if you wish, John.
Would George, see your hand is up?
Yeah, I just want to add just quickly, I'm not sure exactly what we're talking about in terms of resources, John and Robin, but we 2 months ago allocated, I think altogether about 24,000 to spend on the open and outside event. One to make the event happen and the other for furniture. And I don't think we spent maybe 10% of that. So, I mean, I think there's plenty, I don't want to say there's plenty of money, but I think if money is the issue, and I think it would seem to me that our economic development fund money, this would be very appropriate use of that. So if that's a holdup at all.
That would be great. That would be great if we could get that.
I mean, I don't want to speak for the rest of the board, but it seems to me that it's just a natural fit. I don't know, Andrew, what are your thoughts?
I think if we just use really common sense with his, again, it's like approving a philosophy without having some kind of barriers. Yeah, this makes sense where if you need some extra funding, then that would make sense as a place to go. At the same time, if we're talking you need $150,000,
no, we're talking thousands. We're not even talking 10,000. We're talking under 5.
So
I would agree with that, and you just need somebody that knows how to make the drawing look proper in the eyes of the reviewing engineers for them to say, oh yeah, we see what you're doing. And of course, you guys need to see it too, but you know, there's a style and a format and a scale and you know, notes and things, and it's mostly civil engineering stuff. So I think Hamlin's office would be great for it, but it's not you know, a napkin sketch. You got to really, you know, get this down on paper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The happy news is that the environment engineer who's going to do the cap sent us drawings to show us what he would be looking for. So he's working with us.
So if what you need, what I would appreciate is if you were to go back to the open and outside budget, and if there's anything that hasn't been spent out of that amount, tap into it. Because that already has been approved. The design charrette was a part of open and outside. To me, that makes sense. I think I hear George saying something similar.
Yeah.
I would like to hear from other trustees, though, to make sure that this is in line with their thoughts as well.
I'll just say that what's left from the open and outside would be more than enough to complete what we're looking for.
Any other trustees agree, disagree, other thoughts?
This is Raj. I agree. It'd be a shame to lose this opportunity. You know, if it's what Robin says it is, you know, it's under 10, and Andrew, you've made a connection. I don't see a problem with that.
Dan, Amber, anything else you want to add?
I support the idea. I just think, I mean, it's not too much money, and I think we put money towards other projects. You know, as Drew brought up, the open the art festival we had, last year, the year before, and I mean, one aspect of this project that I would disagree with Robin's description that there would be a quiet space. If you spend any time at the Five Corners, I don't care where you are, there was no quiet space. It's a loud space, and there's going to be a lot of vehicles, motorcycles, loud mufflers. It's not some place where you're going to go and read poetry and, you know, take it in quietly.
Amber?
I don't have anything else to add. I support it.
So it sounds like Robin, come back to us on the 24th with what you need. Hopefully we will approve of it then. I don't know if it will ask for any other changes, but that's the timeline.
Thank you. I didn't mean to put you in what seemed like a time crunch, but we went through a lot of stuff, and we did charrette when we could. We thought we did over open and outside to get more people there. And luckily, the CCRPC are wonderful partners, and hopefully they'll work with.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rob and John. Thank you for being here.
Good to see you guys.
And as always, thank you for your help.
Snap, John.
Bye.
Okay. Where are we now? I think we are on to 5F, around publicizing the merger votes and details. Hello again, Greg.
Hello, everybody. Oops. Sorry. Okay, so hopefully you can see the screen. I just put up the memo about publicizing the merger vote and details. I believe the trustees had wanted to take a look at this and talk about this, and in terms of just getting the word out in the coming months, next 2 months essentially, to spread the word about what it means for the merger vote in terms of data, facts, figures, and just general presentation plan. And I'm just looking more closely at the memo and seeing that the recommendation was for the Warner Ave parking ordinance, so apologize for any confusion there. But otherwise, I'll turn it over to the trustees to talk about publicity, and I can weigh in if need be. Thanks.
Thank you. And yeah, I wasn't going to bring up the Warner Ave thing. I have a couple of questions, or one I had emailed out to staff when I saw this or heard of this. Using the Greater Essex 2020 website, I really think we should use a different website. The reason I say that is, given that when we had agreed to create the website, there was agreement from the select board and the trustees to really work collaboratively on items that would go on there. And this is a village thing and a village only thing. And frankly, I don't think the select board really needs to weigh in on what we're going to put on there for informing village voters about the merger. The merger item is going to be voted on in November. So would love there to be a different website, preferably even within the village website. If a second one has to be created, that's fine. Whatever you need to do to get the job done. But I think the Greater Essex 2020 website should be off limits on this one. The other thing I would say, this is important. This is a very important vote for our community. While yes, this vote has happened, I think 4, 5, or 6 times in more years than I have been alive, this is still a very important vote and something we really want to make sure our community is able to understand when they're going to vote. Since we have the capabilities to mail the ballot out to village registered voters, we really want to make sure that they're making an informed decision. Given that we can't do really public events, big public events in person anymore, I would like to go ahead and I would like to ask the trustees if you would be willing to, if we have the funding, to appropriate like $8,000 to $10,000 or so to help in creating materials, mailers, if we need to hire an outside entity to help with video, to help with things that staff don't have time for and or expertise with, for things that we can't, that we don't have a community member who has an expertise in or a willingness or professionalism to really get some items out there, whether that be flyers, pamphlets, a video, videos, what have you. I'd like us to be willing to put some money up to make sure that when residents go and select one of the boxes on merger for the village, they're knowing what they're voting on. So that would be my ask to the board, where I'm assuming we have the funding. I haven't run this by staff, but would there be a willingness to appropriate $8,000 to $10,000 to help with this informational effort?
Someone else has to go.
No, George, it's going to be you. George, it's going to be you.
Come on.
I'm willing to step up. Hey, how about that? No, in the past, we've had not something that we've actually paid. I believe that the village actually paid for, but Annie Cooper's son, I think it was for the rec program or something. There, he used some animation and other media sources or creation of a video. It's just brief almost cartoon characters or whatever, but and narrated it and explained what was going on in the community. I think that is powerful. I think when you can put something in print and leave it on a piece of paper, but when you combine that with the visual effect of a media and what you can do, that really can, you know, sink in and get the message out real well. So that's something to look at.
Yeah, I agree, Dan. That the video that I can't remember which Cooper it was, and I feel really bad about this. But yes, the video that Andy's son did was amazing, and being able to update that would be great. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, I have taken the lead on this a little bit, guys, and I didn't mean to. And Andrew and I have been in touch. I mean, we should, but we didn't want to get too out in front of the rest of the board. But I just want to give a few facts. We got to keep in mind that around, I think, October 5th or 6th, ballots are going to start going out. The ballots are going to be mailed, and people could begin voting. People in the village could begin voting on merger. I might be off by a week, but probably not that much. People could begin voting on merger like about a month from now, something like that. And so they're going to be getting a ballot in the mail saying, do you support the plan of merger with the town of Essex? And we might have 40 or 50 people who follow our stuff and pay attention to what we've been doing over the last year or two. But I can guarantee you the vast overwhelming majority of the people in the village probably have very little understanding of what this is about. And so where are they going to go for information? So we don't have a lot of time to create balanced information and
taxation and the cost for the community within the village, the village. And that's the elephant in the room. We need to explain it, and any alternatives that we have, separation, merger, a hybrid system, maybe. I mean, services that the town provides, you know, and we provide for ourselves. Why are we paying for duplication of effort? Why we get taxed? I'd be fine with if they want to keep those services in the town, fine. The village residents are not taxed for that service. Village residents aren't taxed for that library. They're not taxed for that. You know, all the things out there that we can keep together, but you want to separate and together but separate. That's together but separate. And so it just needs to be explained simply to people. And I'd rather see us merged. That'd be my preference. But if we're not going to merge, we need to have some change, and we need to explain it.
Go ahead, Raj.
So that list, George, we need to explain how the community works. I venture the majority of folks in the village on how we relate to the town, how we are a village within of our own right. So we need to figure out a very concise and simple way to explain our existence as it compares to the town. I think, what do we pay for now? What does it look like if we merge? What are the implications for tax? There was something else, and I got thinking about what Dan was saying. I mean, this is a vote for merger. So I'm a little hesitant to go too far down well, we could do this, we could do that. And then people are going to get stuck on, well, why don't we separate? I mean, we sort of went through that a couple years ago. So this is a vote on merger. This is the plan that's presented. I would sort of maybe leave the what comes next to bring up other potential options and not spend too much time on what they mean.
Okay.
And I only say that because I do think that the majority of us, or all of us, really kind of feel like merger is the right way to go. I think it makes sense. The thing we don't have, though, and we'll get it after we've been doing some communicating, is some kind of feeling from Sarah on what this will all look like. So I'm a little worried that we do all this work, we spend all this money, and we sort of have an October surprise in September. You know what I'm saying? September 28th comes around, we have a meeting. You know, that muddies the water. So we should figure out a way to be prepared for how to deal with that. And I don't know what that's going to, I don't know what those, you know, so that complicates, do we talk about separation? Do we talk about, you know, that complicates things, because if if, and I have no idea how it's going to come out, if it comes out that, no, village taxpayers could save a lot of money if we separate, well, why are we talking about merger then? So we have to be able to answer some of those questions, like why is it still beneficial to merge? We don't have to wordsmith that tonight, obviously, but I'm happy to help with that. You know, all of these things. I think why is the village voting now and the town voting in March is right at the top of the list. Because people will be wondering, and then why might I need to vote again in March? Right? So, not a difficult process answer, but a difficult how we got here.
Right. You're right.
I guess that's just a beginning. I'm curious to hear what everybody else says, but those are, I guess I missed your email, Survey Monkey. I apologize.
That's okay. That's okay.
Amber, do you want to go?
George, I just put all of your emails into spam, so.
That's good. That's where they belong, Amber.
Yeah. So that's where it is. No, I'm just kidding. My apologies for not responding to that. I agree with pretty much everything that everybody said. I'm kind of on the fence about the discussion about, do we include more than merger, separate, shared? I think we've gone down this path for the last year that I've been on the board with only talking about merger and not blending in other conversations. And so that I kind of lean in the direction of, why would we change that now?
Okay.
But I also agree with, you know, I kind of like this concept of like the town meeting, you know, and having the ability for folks to Zoom into a town meeting for us to discuss it. I also want to emphasize that I get lost after a lot of our conversations, and we really need to focus on being short and concise and not dragging on the conversation. And with that, yep. I'm out.
All right.
So I did my homework. The only thing that I wanted to emphasize is I do believe that, yes, we want to make sure that the focus is on informing about the merger vote, because that is the only thing we can do, is we're supposed to inform our residents about this, not really advocate for one position or another. And so if we're going to inform about the merger, we do need to at least tell our residents that, yes, there are other options and what those options are. But in the light of like what Amber is saying, we really want to keep it as short and sweet as possible. I would also say, if the motivation for merger is purely the biggest tax deduction possible or tax reduction possible in the shortest time period, going about it the wrong reason, coming together for the wrong reasons. And so that's why I think that, yes, we want to let people know that separation is an option. I don't think we really necessarily want to go down the route of, well, so then what does separation mean? What does that compare to the merger vote? Because when it comes down to it, we're not going to be able to know at the end whether somebody voted for or against merger. Was it because it was actually for separation, or is it because they just checked the box that they felt like checking in the moment?
Right. Let me ask another question. So, just what is everyone's interest level in participating in this? I mean, I know you're all busy. I know you're all working, but can we sort of tap into a little bit? And you know, if I had in mind, if we did a video and you talking about, I think Amber, I think a town meeting is a really good idea, and I think we probably want to be lining those up for around the 1st of October. I think we're required to have them anyway. But we want to have them. But in the meantime, if we did a video and we had little bits of trustees talking about one aspect of merger that they think is good, or some component of local history or something like that, you guys up for that? Would you like to be talking heads in a video for, get like a 15-20 second shot? Is that okay? Because I think it would help. I think it would be good if we're going to create something like that, to say, so it connects the voters with their elected leaders, and I think that's a good thing.
I think we're already talking heads in some ways with these meetings, with our own little square here. I'm happy to help do that. What I would also say, I think that something that might be beneficial, and I'm happy to send out a doodle poll or a sign-up genius, something like that.
Okay.
I think we should take our turns to have live Q&As, whether those be in the evenings or weekend times, in some of our off meeting times. And if one of us could sign up for each slot, I think what that would help to do is, if somebody has a question, it's a way to quickly go in and get an answer.
I was kind of thinking, Andrew, that we might do is create also, but also have some questions that we know are going to be like a few of the things Raj said, for example. Why are we voting now, and why is the town voting in March? Okay, so we ask that question, and then maybe Raj or Amber answers the question, and we tape it, and we include that in the video, or some other aspect, one of the other questions. What happens if merger fails? That type of thing. So each of us field a couple of questions, we tape it, and we include those clips in a video. I'm talking like this is all just going to be, someone's going to manage all this. I'm hoping it's going to all happen smoothly. It's a lot to do in a short time, but I was kind of thinking just to try to how to piece this out, that something like that might be helpful instead of just having graphic stuff in the video.
All right, go ahead, Dan.
Just a concern about us speaking to the public individually or on an particular issue, having a consistent message, and when you get quoted and they say, "Oh, that's the view of the board?" Well, no, that's the view. That's my interpretation, my view of this aspect of what merger could do, whatever the issue may be, what have you. But
I think that's fine, though, Dan. I think that's a good thing. You're an elected official, and your opinion, people need to hear your opinion. So I don't think that's a problem.
Yeah. No,
I think it's also
fixed messages. I'd rather not see where, if Andrew's saying one thing, I'm saying something a little different, it could come across as not cohesive.
I think it's also important for us to, if there is a question, to try and stick to what the factual answer is. And if we don't know, to not go to an assumption, but to maybe get that person's email address or phone number and follow up with them with the correct response or the accurate response.
Agreed.
So I think if we all do that, then I think we generally all know the same things about merger and could stick away from the philosophy.
Right. Yeah, I'm envisioning these would be pretty softball questions. I don't think we'd try to put anyone on the spot. I think they would just be, but instead of just have someone reading the an FAQ on a screen and then reading the answer in text, it'd be better just to have. I'm just saying it's a nicer presentation to have someone responding, a face, and someone reading and someone talking to them. This would be recorded too. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't be live. It wouldn't be putting you on the spot. Anyway, stop.
Did you have other questions, George, you wanted to ask us while we...
I think I kind of get a flavor of it. What I'm going to do is I think what I'd like to do with you, Andrew, I think we kind of communicated a little bit. I think we want to try to draft up a newsletter, you and I, and be working on that and get that out to the rest of the board for their edits as soon as possible. And again, that's one-on-one stuff. That doesn't require a meeting, and we can be sending that out, and I can be the repository of sending and collecting and putting people's edits in as they come, and then see if we can get to a final version. But I think we want to start working on that fairly like right away. And then, as I said, I'm going to meet with some folks who've done videos and see what they have in mind. I mean, they were going to go out and produce their own video, and I kind of thought, well, why don't we have you work with us? It might be better if you work with us, and instead of us producing our own video, and B, instead of you producing a video that may not have all the stuff in it that we want to have in there. So we're going to see if we can have a little collaboration. I'm not sure it's going to work, but hopefully it will.
I think that sounds great. And
yeah,
before we head out, before we move on from this item, I'd love to go back to that, the financial ask. And I see Evan is joining us possibly. And if there may or may not be, or Greg, if you know the answer to this as well, if there is, $6,000 to $8,000 that we could possibly use to help make sure that we're able to inform our residents.
I'm sure we can work with Sarah to find $6,000 to $8,000 in the budget.
Wow, that's optimistic. Sure. She doesn't need to sleep. Sure.
Perfect. Okay. I'll settle them.
And your hand is up. Is that a holdover?
My hand?
No, Dan's was. Okay,
Sorry. Just legacy.
No worries. Just wanted to make sure before we moved on. Was there anything else on this item before we go on to the next one? Or do we need a motion about expending the funds? Reading a budget for this.
It wouldn't hurt. Sarah, we might be some in the trustee budget anyways, but I guess a vote wouldn't count in case we have to find it in a different bucket.
Okay, so a motion for $6,000 to $8,000 for promotional materials related to informing our residents about the merger.
All right.
So,
Well, that's the motion right there, or do you want a motion?
That was my.
I'd move that the trustees approve the appropriation of maximum $8,000 towards information pertaining to the upcoming merger vote.
All right, Dan, sounds good. Is there a second on that?
I'll second.
Thank you, George. And is there any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, that passed unanimously. Thank you. And we will then go on to the next item, 5G, an update on the draft merger charter.
So Dan Richardson has responded to some questions that were from the select board. That's included in your packet. The select board has also made some responses and the comments and edits to the latest version they saw from the trustees. That is also in your packet. I don't think I need to run through every single change, but hopefully everyone has had a chance to review. And George has sent out a Word version earlier today, so I can pull that up if there's any editing that the trustees want to do discuss tonight.
Yeah, if I could jump in, Andrew, if that would be okay. I think what I tried to do was take the version that had the select board's edits in it, and I tried to either respond or I tried to look at some of the stuff Dan Richardson sent. He hasn't answered all the questions that were raised, but I tried to basically summarize, encapsulate everything exactly where we are now. So if you could put that up. And we could just scroll through it. And I'm sorry, I know this is taking a long time and it's late at night, but it might be good to, I think we could probably get it finalized tonight, probably in about 15 minutes, if you could put it up there. Do you have it, Greg? Or I can do it if necessary.
And again, well, that's coming up just from the intent of this. So the intent is to get as close as we can to an agreed upon charter between the select board and the trustees, so that way, when the select board warns this in March, it matches as close as possible to the one that we are going to warn for the November vote. We have until our meeting on September 24th. And so everything that we do tonight, correct me if I'm wrong, is then going to go back to the select board for them to discuss at their next meeting. Then that will come back to us for our approval at the 24th.
Right. And if you could just start scrolling through it, Greg, I think we can I quickly identify any lingering points of contention. Some of their questions, I kind of said, this is a technical issue, or it's something about a redundancy. And if you get to the first comment right there. So there was a question here at the end of the transition period, the charter will become effective in the new town of it. And so Elaine and Andy are saying, well, basically as I read this, there's a little confusion about why do we need a transition period? And the issue is, yes, the charter is approved, and so technically it's a formal legal document. If, for example, it was approved in April of next year, but there's no money for the new government. There can't be new money for the new government until the following year. So that's kind of, in my mind, my understanding is that that's why this transition period is necessary. You can't just from whole cloth create, because there's no, the budget cycle is out of sync with the legal cycle. So that's my response there. And again, so I don't see this as a huge issue, but it's just I just wanted to respond. I mean, just keep scrolling. We get to the next. Some of these are just
George, the only thing I want to add onto that
Yep.
with 102 is the response from Dan Richardson is that it's ultimately up to the legislature. And
Right,
so regardless
exactly.
of what we put in, they're going to do what they think is best, given the time frame as to when it gets in front of them.
Right, exactly. So we just don't know. So, and I just wanted to raise the issue that, again, until money is appropriated for this new town of Essex, it exists on paper, but it doesn't really function. It can't really function as a town until it's got an income. And in the meantime, you have voter-approved budgets for the former town of Essex and the former village of Essex Junction that was approved by voters. So that's why you have this kind of odd transitional hybrid period between one charter and another. Okay. So you scroll down, and here they talked about. Craig, if you could just stop wherever you see my name. I tried to point out, give them, and I'm not trying to say, but I just did this to identify what I thought were important issues. And we just agreed. I said I didn't see, Andy and Elaine made some corrections here, and I said I didn't see any big issues here. This was something I think we agreed to before.
I agree. I think we can go ahead.
Yep. So we scroll down to the next one. They had talked about, do we need to tweak the meaning of the sidewalk district? Do we need to make it more? I think the last time we met, we said this language just establishes the district. If down the road the town wants to expand the sidewalk district into the town or make this whole thing permanent, that's fine. That can, the charter is a living document. It can be amended the following year. But amending this right now is not really necessary. It's not a deal breaker. All we're trying to do is establish the sidewalk district, and we can amend it. We can expand it or contract it or make it a permanent feature at a later time if the future board wants to do that. So we can scroll down. And then these are all just wording changes that are fine. Again, that's just they're talking about the beginning. They're hung up on the beginning of the new. When does the community start? And I just want to point out you've got this issue of until there's a new budget, there's not really a new community. There's a community just on paper. So you've got a transitional community. Okay, we can keep scrolling. So here, this brings us into the one area of controversy, if we can stop right here. So, and this is in several places. So there, we have, as far as I understand it, trustees, we're advocating, and as I said right here, we're recommending a 7-member board to comply with the guidance of the Government Operations Committee. The Government Operations Committee sent a letter. It went to the select board, it went to the trustees, and it went to the manager. And they said, we don't like even numbered boards. We want an odd numbered board. And so we're putting in an odd numbered board, 7 members, 3 from the, the town, 3 from the village, 1 at large. And that's a major point of contention in the charter. I think we've been over this time and again. My understanding is that where the trustees are is that this is what we want. We want a 3-3-1 board structure. But I don't think we're necessarily saying we're willing to sink the entire merger effort on behalf of this. So this is really the principal point of contention that I see in the whole charter right now, and I get the input from the rest of you and your thoughts about it.
I think we've talked about this numerous times. 331 is what we've settled on the last few times.
Okay. And then the other issue they raise is that they would like to, in the initial charter, if the village was called Ward 1 and the town would be called Ward 2, but I think Andy raised the point, well, since there's an 8-1 district in the town, wouldn't it make sense to call the town Ward 1 and the village Ward 2? I said I don't think, on behalf of the trustees, I'm not seeing a huge problem there. I don't think we really care which is called Ward 1 or Ward 2. Maybe it is important to someone, but if it is, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Someone's got to be Ward 1, someone's got to be Ward 2.
There you go.
Doesn't matter who it is.
Okay. And again, more of the 767 business. We can keep scrolling. Keep scrolling. And Elaine made a recommendation, and I didn't see, these are just wording changes. Now, here we have Andy and Elaine in several sections raised, well, do we want the planning commissioners and I guess the DRB to have 4-year terms or 3-year terms? This was news to me. Our planning commissioners have always been 3-year terms, and as far as I know, the town's planning commissioners have always been 3-year terms. So I don't know why they're suddenly asking, well, do we want 3 or 4-year terms? So I'm saying, let's just leave it at 3-year terms. I don't think this is a deal breaker. If the town wants to put something in their charter, again, I don't see that would be an irreconcilable conflict for the GovOps committee to resolve in their committee room if the 2 charters are approved. I just don't see a big deal there. So for the sake of brevity and getting this done, I just said I'm recommending we just leave it at 3 and not have a debate about do we want 3 or 4-year terms.
Greg, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, the town actually has, Town Planning Commission has 4-year terms right now.
Oh, they do? Okay. Well, so, I mean, I don't care.
Yeah, I don't know if that's how important that is for the select board either. I think they're planning to meet with the Planning Commission sometime in the next month or so. So maybe they'll have some more feedback then, but beyond that, I don't want to speak for them.
I just don't. I tried to just skip over the things that are not a contentious, that are kind of minor, and anything that's going to require us to have long meetings and resolve some issue that really isn't going to be a deal breaker on the charter either way. So
along those lines, I don't care if we change it to 4 if it's what they're used to. Let's just do it. And other trustees have any concerns with that?
No, I'm fine with 4.
No concerns.
Okay. Okay, Elaine asked, should the water sewer district piece be in the transition charter or the permanent charter? I think that we got the feedback from Dan. He said he thought it should be in the transition charter. And then I made the note that it could, if we think so, again, this is just something that could be picked up and moved, 2 years from now or 3 years from now, if we wanted to put it, or whoever's in the government wanted to put it in the permanent part of the body of the charter that's permanent as opposed to transitional. But again, not a big deal. We're not changing the wording or quibbling over what it says. We're just, the placement of the thing in the charter, but it's in there and it's fine. Okay, so we can scroll. And again, Elaine had a question, well, what if the legislature doesn't approve it? What if it's, and I, again, yeah, that's fine. I think that's the dates, the specific dates of, when something happens, that can be amended depending future events. Not a deal breaker here. These are just technical issues, not something we have to really get into. I think the language in the charter right now is fine. And then if something delays the vote or for some reason it doesn't get down to the legislature in time, we can do something, we can amend the date.
I think if the legislature throws out the charter because it says 2022 instead of 2023, I think that's concerning.
I don't think they're going to do it. So, okay. Again, Andy raised the question, or Elaine raised the question: does the town does this allow you to impose penalties? The way I read it, again, I don't want to interpret this. I'm not a lawyer. Amber's a lawyer. She can interpret it. I can't. But I just said it seems fine for now. And if it doesn't, I mean, this was a lot of this was boilerplate language that was taken either from the town or the village charter or from some other charter. And so if it doesn't allow for the imposition of penalties, and we discover that that's a huge flaw, or the town discovers that's a huge flaw, they can always amend this language later on. But it's, again, didn't seem worth debating or discussing right now. It seemed fine to me the way it is.
What I just want to add from what Dan Richardson says, of where it says, or where he says, it won't hurt to add this phrase, but it's not totally necessary. The proposed charter specifies that Vermont laws apply, including ability to enact and apply ordinances. Frankly, what I would say is if the select board wants to get rid of it, they can get rid of it. If they want to keep it, they can keep it. It doesn't matter. It's in there anyway.
Right. Right. Okay. 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 Okay, I think this was a big one. Don wanted the language in there to change from time to time the boundaries of the wards, of the voting wards. And they recommended some different language that they're putting in, that they sent in their letter to the House Government Ops Committee. I thought that the language that is here, that we put in here, this is boilerplate that we got from a bunch of other charters and simmered into this statement here. I don't see a deal breaker. I think the intent, our intent and their intent is the same. We are saying, yeah, the board is empowered to make changes to adjust for population. But they're saying, well, should we do it every 10 years to align with the U.S. Census? Montpelier, we were recommended that we do it every 5 years. I don't think any of us really care that much. So again, not a huge deal breaker, not something to quibble over. I would recommend that we leave our simplified language here. And then if the town wants to put their more complex and specific language in referring to the U.S. Census, they could put that in their charter, and I think that could be resolved. That's the kind of thing that could be resolved in committee. I don't think it in any way, goes to the heart of the intent of the two merger charters.
I think that redistricting may be one of those where if they're too competing, if they're too different, then the legislature may have some hackles raised, if you will. I'm curious though, Evan, did the select board get to this part of the meeting? Did they talk about this tonight?
No.
Too bad.
I think the more you just go with what they want, the less you're going to argue with some
That's
of it.
fine.
Just go with it and remind them that they asked for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that's fine with me. I don't want to speak for the rest of the trustees. I just didn't want to say, Elaine isn't saying definitely. She's just saying, hey, should we use this? And I said, I just don't see a big issue here.
The general gist of the meeting with Dan is, I believe the state law is you cannot change them sooner than 5 years. Why you change them is more important. If you only change them if your demographics or population shifts so wildly that your wards are out of balance.
What I would say is What I like is I like the use of how Dan Richardson is providing Montpelier's, because Montpelier's has already gone through the government
Right.
office committees. It has already passed the House, has already passed the Senate, has been fully approved by the entire legislature. So
Yep.
that's a tried and true tested approach. What
Yep.
I would say is let's put Dan Richardson's recommendation in. If the select board doesn't want that, if they want to go with their own, I don't care that much about this one. But I think that we should be close to some kind of consensus.
But we can keep our eye on.
Greg, Dan said he was going to provide that language, correct?
He did, yes. He sent it over. I can't remember if I incorporated it anywhere. I think it's in the questions and answers from Dan.
It is. It's in the memo. It's under
Yeah.
number 8.
And I'm trying to capture your comments. I don't know if you can see my typing here, saying the Board of Trustees is content with 5 or 10 years, and the Montpelier language has been approved already, and could be a good model.
Yep.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay.
Can I ask related to that, back in the train? I'm just getting back here. Sorry, folks, I had to leave for something urgent. I apologize. That related to you know what? Never mind. Sorry, I'd lost my place in the what I missed. Forget it. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, so this next one here, Elaine asked, this section requires discussion and agreement between the two boards. I don't know why. It seems to be redundant, but I don't see a problem with it. I don't know why Elaine, I'm questioning, I don't know why Elaine believes it might be contentious between us. So maybe the rest of you could take a look at it. This is just the powers of the elected officials, the select board.
I think what this is referring to is Raj's request around cannabis.
Okay.
Or cannabis and tobacco products.
Okay, it's connected to the next. Okay, I broke these up visually. I'm sorry. All right, then they did have a problem with this because they said they weren't sure. They wanted the new board to be in the position of regulating cannabis. They were questioning that, and so I don't know what to say here. I also noted that I think the legislature. I wasn't really clear what the legislature has said about this and whether this entire section will fly or not under current whether they would allow it or not. So I leave it up to the board. I mean, Raj wanted this put in, and Raj, you can absolutely advocate for this, and I mean it's totally up to you.
Well, this started out as a effort around tobacco. Specifically, George, I think you remember I mentioned the issue we had before, and partially because of tobacco and cannabis sharing similar paraphernalia sales, cannabis was inserted, and also because the legislature didn't seem to be getting anywhere with cannabis regulation this year. It looks like they're moving on that. It looks like the cannabis portion of this will severely complicate whatever the that whole thing. So I'm comfortable taking the cannabis portion of this right out of there if that simplifies it. And then we can just simply have a conversation with the select board if there's time. If it is going to hold anything up, I just assume take it out.
Okay, I would recommend taking it out because I think it could be something that hangs them up.
It's unfortunate that because the whole point of this is to the legislature has given communities the power to do this, and this allows us to utilize the power that has been given to us. So it's unfortunate that we would have to. I love the intent. I would love to see this happen. At the same time, I agree. Eye on the long range. If we need to take this out, we can take it out.
Yep.
I think. If it's the cannabis portion and sending that back over to them and saying, leave it to tobacco and what else is in here? Yeah, just leaving it to tobacco and such. If they don't care about that, then fine. I think that it also might just benefit from what are the other avenues we have at our disposal, and is that something that can be added later?
I think it could be added later, Raj. I really do.
Yeah. That's why I didn't want to rush.
So I'm getting a sense I can put in a note that this can be removed for now and considered at a later date.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other note that I saw from the select board was that they were saying, do we want to get into the regulatory role?
Such as the Liquor Control Board?
I think they have no choice about that.
No, I know. Sorry. It was a not needed comment.
Okay. Okay. Andy asked again, and this was also based on feedback from with the moderator, Dan Richardson. He thought I think as I recall, I think he said it should stay in. And I also noted that the school district just has an informational annual meeting, and they elect a moderator. So I don't, again, by no means a deal breaker on merger or merger charter. I don't see why it requires a lot of discussion. If it needs to come out at a later date, it can come out. I would just leave it in there for now. That's my recommendation.
Agreed.
Okay. Okay. Andy asked what does it mean? The ballot boxes shall be set by the town clerk. I believe that was boilerplate. I don't want to blame Ann. Not that I'm blaming. I don't want to put it on Ann's shoulders, but I believe this was boilerplate we got from somewhere. And I think what this does is just says it's up to the town clerk to decide, the dates. Instead of us putting in 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or something like that in the charter, we just leave it up to the town clerk, and the town clerk by policy puts as voting dates. That's why it went in there.
There's the note from Dan Richardson as well, that the Montpelier example of the town clerk and board of civil authority shall conduct elections in accordance with general laws of the state.
Right.
So if the phrase ballot box is too confusing, we can just take that out and utilize what Montpelier has already done.
Yeah, right.
Same intent.
That's what I would suggest.
Okay. Okay, here, the next one, you're set, Greg? I don't want to rush.
Yes, all set.
Okay, so here we had asked, we said the village has a very simplified way of adopting ordinances. They just refer, I mean, it's not simple, but it refers to state law. The town has a very complex, elaborate process that they put in their charter. We asked the select board, did they have a preference? I couldn't find a note saying, Elaine just asked the question again. So for now, I would recommend that we just go with the simplified village version. If the town wants to put their more complex version in their charter, that could be done. Or, we could, before now and the end of the month, if we could switch, but I haven't heard back from them. But for now, I would just, for our purposes, I would just put in the village's simplified version. And I would really recommend the select board do the same. I think if you actually go to the state statutes, then it has a very elaborate, spelled out process. But anyway.
I would agree. Let's keep it in, see what they say, and we can revisit it on the 24th.
Yep. Okay. these are just, okay. Now this is actually, you're going to have to help me with this, okay? And I'm going to have to just steamroll over political correctness. But Elaine here in a number of places refers to the manager as they and their. And at first I was reading this and I got confused because I kept saying, is she referring to the select board or the manager? And what is she doing? And I finally realized that what she's doing is that, I know that in current business, it's becoming acceptable or appropriate to refer to a single person as they. And I don't know if that's what Elaine is doing here. It seems like it is. But as I was reading this, I found it confusing. And I'm a little concerned that form of address, although it might be acceptable in some business, it may not be acceptable in the legal world and in the charter world. And Amber, if you could weigh in on this, if you've seen anything like this, it might be helpful. My recommendation would just be to do the awkward piece here of saying every time you're referring to the manager, just say the manager instead of they or their, and just keep it that way, even though it's linguistically awkward. But I found the way she put their and they in this to be confusing. It made me not understand who was being referred to here, the select board or the manager. So I throw it open to you, and particularly Amber, have you seen that language in legal documents?
I haven't, George. I mean,
Okay.
I think your suggestion is fine.
Okay.
I mean, I don't have any issues with that.
Okay.
I would assume as well that what she's going for is the gender neutral pronouns, so that way there is no possibility of offending anybody. Having it say
Right.
the manager does the exact same thing, and at the same time what it does is it helps to prevent future controversies if there's ever a debate about whether it is actually the power of the manager or not, because it is explicitly
Right.
stating that position.
Right. But if you just read the first sentence, you see, I mean, the manager shall be the chief administrative officer. They shall be responsible for the select board, town of Essex affairs placed in charge by another. Now, when you read the third sentence, I go, well, okay, you're referring to the powers of the manager, but you just mentioned the select board. So who are you referring to here? So I just found it confusing. Anyway, that's I would just keep saying the manager every time it comes up and not avoid the whole issue of gender neutrality. And the fact that Amber agrees with me makes it right.
It's the way we all feel.
Okay. And I didn't know about Andy. He's asking, is that discrimination? Again, I don't know. It seems to cover most of the bases, and it could be amended at a future point. If you see in the middle of that paragraph right there, if we find that if the board, 2 years from now finds that it's not broad enough or specific enough, they can always amend that. But it seems to hit all the right places right now in my mind. And everyone else can weigh in on that.
What I would just say real quick is the note from Dan Richardson about referring to state and federal law rather than providing a list, and I think that's what Greg was about to say.
Okay.
If we can just put in that note of
that's fine. Just sure.
There could be
sure,
a reference to state or federal law.
Yep. You got that, Greg?
A state or federal law changes, that would have us covered. Whereas if something gets added or something gets taken out, then we'd have to go back and change the charter.
Right.
Good.
These were just word changes, format changes. I'm not sure as much of anything. Okay.
So this
Again,
one's about
go ahead.
This one's about the vacancy in the office of the manager, and Andy's question is whether this needs to be in there or whether it should be in policy. Dave Richardson is saying that it should be in here because if there is a point in time in which there is no manager, the confusion is taken care of. Because policies can be changed pretty easily, whereas a charter not so much.
Right. So I think this stays in.
Yeah.
Again, this goes to the issue of the terms of the DRB. Here's a DRB, Planning Commission. Are they 3 or 4 year terms? 4 year term, we said already. 4 year terms are fine. We don't want to get hung up on this. Next one down, Elaine asked why the Brownell Library trustees. I answered, and I think Dan also said that, the Brownell Trust calls for a public election of its board of trustees. It's required by law, so that has to be in the charter. I don't believe the Essex Free Library is required by the board of the Essex Free Library is required by law. I think it's required by town policy, but I don't think it's required by law. The select board could put something in there in this section if they want to for parity and equity, but I don't think it's necessary. I think you're dealing with two different things here.
I say if they want to put something in, that's their choice. I don't personally care.
I don't think we care.
Yeah, when we're done with this one, though, there was another note from Dan Richardson in a different section.
Okay.
I'm trying to get back to it. It was, I think, 801 under the Board of Civil Authority.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I missed that one.
Although I see there's a question to Dan, but it's not in the charter notes. The question to Dan was, is this section needed? And Dan is saying that the Board of Civil Authority is defined under statute somewhat differently.
Yeah. I believe the difference is the other one has I think was the addition of the town clerk.
Gotcha. As far as I'm concerned, I don't care either way.
Yeah.
Seeing as there is, I don't know if anyone's going to bring that up if it comes up.
Okay. State Brownell, did that already. Yeah, Dan thought it was just that was no big deal. There was no big question issue there.
It looks like the next one isn't until 1102.
Yeah, it's pretty far down. Okay. I said I haven't heard from Dan. I didn't see that in Dan's list, but maybe I missed it.
It says in 1102, the question was, where does the authority to collect penalty and interest on school tax come from? Dan Richardson response is, language here gives that authority. 32 VSA 5136 gives municipalities ability to collect interest. Municipality needs to elect to do so either through charter or some provision. So the way I read it is it's here to do that.
Yeah, that's in. Okay, so that stays in.
Then there's an 1102B. The question, should the select board have the authority to waive tax penalties in the event of natural disaster, pandemic, or economic turndown, or should that be solely the responsibility of the BCA? I guess both staff and Dan Richardson best to not put in hands of the select board the ability to waive tax penalty. I mean, I say if we have an attorney saying that the select board shouldn't do it, I could see there being political allyship, if you will, or political motivations to do such things, and the Board of Civil Authorities is, exactly there for that purpose. So I can blatantly see the intent of that, and I would be inclined to, I'd be in line to take that out and go with our attorney.
Okay.
That was our discussion. That is the better play.
Yeah, good. Take it out.
So it looks like that's the end of that one, and there was one question left in that memo from staff about questions to Dan Richardson, where there's a question or a statement that says the town treasurer isn't referenced in the charter. What is the default in state statute for a town treasurer? We don't want to inadvertently create a position for elected treasurer. Dan Richardson's response is that 17 VSA 2651 subsection F refers to appointed treasurer, should include provision calling for appointed treasurer if it's desired. And then I think there's a note here from Evan saying that the manager should appoint the treasurer and to include in section for manager responsibilities. That's the way we do it in the village. Works for us.
Yeah.
I don't know how it works in the town, but if the town likes the way we do it, that works for me. If they have a different proposal, I don't personally care that much.
Yeah.
So, just so that you know, Town Charter 117-602, the town manager shall appoint, with the approval of the selectman, town clerk, town treasurer. So, town treasurer is the second one in the list.
Sounds good.
But they do it with their approval of selectmen. So they want me to appoint and them to approve. So maybe that's semantics of whether you guys agree with that versus just giving the authority of the town manager to appoint someone.
Why don't we be a little gutsy here, and why don't we just put in to have the manager appoint the treasurer?
Yeah.
Or just to have the treasurer listed up above in with the other sections or the other positions that you're allowed to appoint. And however it's worded, just put in the position of treasurer in there.
And again, in the future, if you decide to change it, it's not,
Yes.
I don't think it's going to be met with a lot of resistance.
No.
I also get to do the inspector of lumber and shingles.
That's good. That's what you want.
So that should be it in terms of everything from the select board that we are aware of. At this point in time, it seems like we have addressed everything. As I recall, the next steps from this, again, our version goes to the select board. At their next meeting, they're going to talk. They're going to hopefully address all the pieces that we have addressed. That will come back to us for our subsequent meeting, and at our subsequent meeting, we will hopefully be able to approve of the charter to go to the voters.
Yep.
Great. So do any trustees have anything else to add to this, or did we miss anything, trustees?
I think I missed this section, but what did you all do with the transitional redistricting section? Can't remember. I couldn't find what section that was in a hurry before. Now I'm at
I believe what we said is that we would want to go with what what Dana Richardson has provided in the Montpelier example. And that the select board, when they talk, hopefully they would agree. If not, then it would come back to us to take up either what the town is proposing or just go with what Dana Richardson is recommending.
And how about the sidewalk district? Was that?
Greg, Greg, your hand is up.
Yeah, just a quick thing on the transitional redistricting. Dan's advice was actually just to make sure the trustees are clear. Was that section can come out during the transitional piece, and it'll be elsewhere in the charter in terms of redistricting. So it won't be part of the transitional piece, which was the original plan. It's just if population changes enough later on.
My apologies. Thank you.
I'm not sure if that was clear earlier in the discussion.
So we wouldn't be asking the board to look at a kind of a new makeup within a certain period of time that's coming out. Is that one? And again, I'm sorry to make you guys do this again. I'm just curious.
That was partially Dan. That was basically Dan's recommendation. It was more in response to a select board question, I guess. But with the select board feeling that the 3-3 vote was establishing the districts that the community wanted. They were willing to take that out, and Dan said it's fine to take that out as long as there's redistricting language somewhere else in the charter.
Yeah, I guess my impetus for keeping it in before, and again, I apologize for having to step out. It was kind of a family thing, but was that 3-3 was for a status quo vote. There was nothing in the 3-3 effort that had anything to do with the merged community. And if we were going to accept 3-3, which we could do, that we have a separate commission look at what a perhaps different, I won't use the word better, a different model would be with more logical and less historically based boundaries. That was sort of the intent from the Gov sub going forward with that. And again, Andrew, George, Amber, Dan, tell me if this has already been discussed and dropped. Don't drop it. But
Greg, could you bring that back up just on the screen?
Yeah, 1 second.
I kind of feel like I might be conflating two things. So if I am, also tell me.
My thought, Raj, I think it's up to the trustees if you want to have redistricting within that transitional period within the first 5 years. I think you need to keep it in the charter. If the trustees are comfortable with taking it out and just knowing that redistricting will happen when population requires it, that's the other options. I'd say those are the two options the trustees have.
And if I can add one last thing, Raj, I think you are conflating. Maybe let me try to parse this out for you.
I'm not able to find it, so that's why I'm wondering it's gone.
When the community merges, at any time, the elected board can create a commission to review its form of government.
Right.
Okay, you don't need that in your charter. What you will need to do is, once that commission recommends to the board and the board approves moving forward to a charter vote, it's a charter vote to change your form of government. Whether it's 1 district, 2 districts, 3 districts, you still are changing your form of government.
Yeah, I get that part, and I think it's gone from this copy. But that's not the point that I was trying to make, I guess. The impetus there was to accept 3-3, from my point of view, would, and going back to the early Gov sub or the later Gov sub days of the 2-2-3 was to say, we'll do 2-2-3, and then, we'll take, instead of looking at wards and districts prior, we'll ask the transitional board to appoint a commission to take a very focused and purposeful look at what would be the best way to divide up wards, to model a select board of sorts. 3-3 I think was just sort of pulled out of a hat without much to it, and I'm not still certain it's the best long-term route. Without anything in there saying that this is something that should be done, it's a deadlock on whether it should be done. So, it just seems almost like predisposed and never happened. You take a 3-3 board and one section of the community feels like things are going fine, thank you very much, and the other doesn't, and they're even. I don't know where you go with that. So that's kind of what my understanding of why it was in there a few weeks ago. And I'm sure the select board is very happy with their path forward with 3-3. And I could go with 3-3 if I thought that there'd be someone non-political in a commission, kind of looking at what actually a good model would be for this community. I guess that's, if it's just me, we can move on. I just was wondering what was going on with it, why I wasn't there.
I think it is 106D. Am I missing it?
Yeah, it's 106D. I have it. Let me pull it up again. And the other piece of it is that, Raj, I don't know if you missed this part, the trustees still want the 3-3-1, so there would be the even number of boards. I guess it comes down to the question of, do you want to redistrict within those first 5 years, or just when just from population requires it.
Yeah, thanks. I couldn't find it before. I apologize. I don't know why I couldn't find that.
Can everybody see that now?
Yeah.
A lot in here.
All right. Sorry, I missed it. I couldn't.
No, I mean, my understanding is there were no comments on this from the select board, so I would take that as they're fine with it.
Although it does say 6-member select board, so we're going with 331. So shouldn't that say 7?
The
Yeah,
version.
it's
Go ahead, go ahead, George.
yeah, the version that's on the screen. Are you seeing the version that's on the screen, Raj?
Oh, I'm seeing the PDF from before. That was your.
Yeah, no, we corrected it. We put
Right.
we put 7 back in. They took 7 out and put in 6. We crossed out 6 and put 7 back in.
All right. I promise to
That's
give you all this 10 minutes back somewhere in your life. I swear.
All right, thanks, Raj.
Somehow.
We can all think of a location for another time. All right, so is there anything else, trustees, with this, or are we ready to go on to the next item?
I'm good.
Right, that concludes our business item, I believe. Greg, your hand is up. Is that a leftover? Okay. Okay, that brings us on to the consent agenda, which before anybody moves to approve the consent agenda, I have one change I'd like to ask for, which is the same change I asked for at our last meeting that I need to find again. In the correction to these minutes on, well, what line is this? And there we go. So on line 103, where I say that requested the change from SCHNELL to SHIANG, what I asked for was HSIANG, not SH, but HS.
HSIANG.
Yes, that is Brian's name.
Okay.
That's all I got. Now it's to move the consent agenda.
Okay, is that it?
That's all I got.
Okay, I will move that we approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
Thank you both. Any further discussion on the motion?
Hold on. I wasn't there. Says I intended.
So then I'll move the, no, George, I'll take a friendly amendment to the amendment.
Yeah.
So, Dan, you've asked for the friendly amendment to take out Raj's name. George, you're allowing for the friendly amendment from Dan.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Any other conversation, debate on this? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, that passed unanimously. That will bring us into the reading file, which there are a couple of things that I wanted to talk about. One being the upcoming meeting schedule. I had referenced our next meeting as September 24th. I hope the rest of the board is okay with this. I think this was something that I had talked about with George and Evan. I don't know if I talked about this at our last meeting. In order to align our meeting schedule with the time frame of the getting the merger ballot or the merger plan ready for the ballot, we need to approve of it. The 24th is the first available day. So if we move our meeting to the 24th, it allows us to align our process with state statute with the merger plan. So instead of calling another meeting that week, are you okay with, instead of meeting on the 22nd, meeting on the 24th instead?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Other than that being my birthday, I'm fine with it.
Oh,
Wait,
25? 25 years?
Yeah, big 4-0 this year.
Oh.
Amber.
Oh.
Yeah.
What
I will
better
accept
way?
cupcakes.
Amber, you don't know how we do birthdays here.
Well, in a Zoom world, I can only imagine.
So in all seriousness, that only happens once. Are
Fine.
you okay with that?
Fine.
Okay.
We'll try to have some kind of a celebration for you, Amber. We don't know what. But we got time to think about it.
Okay. I'll
I
look
don't
forward to it.
Well, we could travel with Raj. Raj seems to find ways to move. He could bring us on a virtual trip. We could
Sure.
special for your birthday.
Yes, we'll do something.
The other thing that I wanted to bring up, coming up soon, we're going to have to start talking about the budget for next fiscal year. If there are certain priorities that you have, please start thinking of those. If you have ideas, send them to Evan and I. If there are certain items you want to do differently, things that you want to have explored, we need to do that sooner rather than later. So please make sure to get any budget ideas to Evan and I. Evan, I don't know if you have a specific time frame in which you need those by.
A couple weeks, 2,
How about before our next meeting?
sure.
All right. If there's anything you want to have added or investigated and it's not identified before then, tough luck. Unless it's your birthday, then you get a pass.
Not true.
Oh, so we all get a pass? Trustees, anything for general comments, concerns? Staff, any comments, concerns?
Thank you for your support.
Thank you. All right. We do not have an executive session tonight. So if somebody wants to make a motion to get out of here.
Move, we adjourn.
second.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Raj. Any further discussion on adjourning? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody
Bye,
opposed?
everybody.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye, guys.